Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The internet is full of half-truths and all-out lies. We've all seen them, and many people on social media complaining about it. Here's your chance to show and prove. WorldAfropedia.com is a black-owned and operated encyclopedia. There are several thousand articles, but we need help. We can't uncover all the truth ourselves. So please, join us and become a writer, editor, or blogger for WorldAfropedia.com today. Every little bit counts. We owe it to the future generations to put the truth out there. Visit WorldAfropedia.com, the African-centered encyclopedia, a global database of African knowledge for the purpose of bringing about global African wisdom and understanding. WorldAfropedia.com.
You know, it's decode.
Yes, Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
Out at the Space Center the other day, about a week ago, my supervisor came to me. Well, he called me into his office, and naturally, I thought that something was about to happen, catastrophic, against me. But what my supervisor informed me was that he was about to suspend or let go of one of the black workers, one of the black people who work in the organization. And so he sat me down and he said, John, I understand that you are the informal leader of the blacks around here. And I'm telling you this because I want you to use your influence, whatever it is, out there among the blacks. And so I guess I wanted to raise that situation as an example of what you were talking about, black leadership. And what my response was is that, well, Mike, I can barely lead myself. I said, so what I would recognize is that you are the leader of the blacks in this organization. And I said that to the extent that I can use my influence, I should use it, you know, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it had to do with revealing truth in all circumstances. And so I really didn't get to the bottom of it because he began to shorten the conversation and try to back out of it.
See, this is an illustration of what I mean. What he's saying, if I get it correct, is that you chose to use the formula or the logic, counter-racist logic, of saying that you were not what he said that you were. And that gave you an advantage. Because, see, for one thing, it gives you the advantage because you're talking to a white person now, a person that presumably has power, more power than you. All right? See, so you use what I call political jiu-jitsu. That's what all this is, okay, where you use your opponent's words and strength against them. You know how jiu-jitsu, judo works. You use, the person comes sailing in the air at you, and you touch them on the thumb, and they go flying through the air, all right? See, because you touched them just in the correct place at the correct time. I guess Bruce Lee or somebody else understands all that. Okay, so that's what you did. You took the same words. You didn't speak Swahili. You just, he gave you English words, what they call English words. Words are nothing but tools anyway. I don't care what you call the language. Language doesn't mean anything. It's just a way of saying things to get things done. That's all they are. So he said he understood that you were a informal black leader. Now, what could he have done initially using the basic formula? Ask him, what is an informal black leader? Correct. See, I want you to pick up the flavor so you can just pick up of it right now. See, the minute somebody puts a label on you, you just say, wait a minute, what's that? See, what's an informal black leader? See, now they're going to, they wasn't ready for that. See, because this is not typical nigger action. Okay? They're dealing with somebody who is coming out of the niggerization process. Okay? Oh, you're a strange one. See, all down through history, there have been people like that on jobs and everything else, where the white people get together at lunch and whisper and say, something strange about this boy. Meaning he ain't on the wavelength like we trained him. He's not responding to the buttons that we set up that when we push it, this doesn't happen. Something short circuits. All right, so that's what happened, see. You said that he kind of cut everything short, right?
Yes.
Now he's got to go back to the drawing board.
Well,
that gives
happened,
you breathing space.
Well, 2 days later, I received, to my surprise, Employee of the Year award.
Standard reaction.
$1,000 cash.
Standard reaction.
$500 gift certificate.
Standard reaction.
And the day after was when several people were suspended. And so I guess that shows my black leadership.
But something else. That shows also something else. Because see, when this is a setup, remember this. When you start getting the awards, it means that you are on the watch list. Now that watch list, when it's 2 buttons under it, it says, eventually we're going to do 1 or 2 things with him. We're going to draw him in so that we can use him against the rest of them, or we are going to come down on him like bricks. There's just 2 formulas for that when they start getting what they call the odd Negro. See? First thing they do, they got 2 ways to go after the little conference. We're going to push him away from us, or we're going to pull him to us. Which way are we going to go right now is step 1. They'll say, okay, we'll try to pull him to us and see how that works. We'll butt him up. We'll give him the Pocahontas treatment. All right?
He said I was the most improved employee over the past year.
Yes, I know. See, right. And it works most of the time. It works. See, but always look for it. Once the nice things start happening to you, look out. See, that's the bait. Like in the boxing ring, see, the guy, Muhammad Ali, he's backing up. He's backing up, see, and you're going forward, and you're losing your balance as you go forward. And then he suddenly stops, see, and then throws that hook in there, and you go sailing across the ring. You got baited in. Some people call it, sucker punch or something like that? It's the same thing in an office. See, when they start coming in, the latest too, oh boy, they really work.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Thursday, June 30th, 2016. So I have been told. This is our weekly forum, Workplace Racism. Folks have observations, problems. If you have figured out some solutions to minimize problems on the job, feel free. Dial in the number 641-715-3640. The code is 564943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. Certainly, anyone, if we have individuals who are entrepreneurs, self-employed, as they say, I have maintained for a long time that if you work for yourself as a black person, as a victim of white supremacy anywhere in the world, that is not going to solve your problem with white supremacy on the job. It is just going to change how you experience racism in the area of activity known as labor. If we have folks that are self-employed, feel free, chime in. If I'm talking crazy and you don't have any problems with racism, well, we definitely need to know that. And or if you have solved that problem, self-employed or no, and you don't have any problems, everything is smooth, whites don't give you any trouble, and you don't have any issues with non-white people either. Definitely chime in and let us know how you were able to pull that off, because that is pertinent, critical information. The number again, 641-715-3640. The code is 564943#. Press star 6 if you would like to participate. That was Mr. Fuller from many years ago. His book available at producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. The updated version of the code book should be coming soon. Stay tuned. With that, we had a few things folks had written in to share before we get started, and then I'll get to the phone line. I will again insist this is not a spectator program. I know Dr. Welsing said for many, many years it should be impossible to get even 5 black people together. I would submit maybe even 2, maybe even 1 black person. And you can have this group and nobody has any problems on the job. Everybody is getting their promotions. Nobody is getting any reprimands, warnings, write-ups. Everything is fantastic. They are being promoted and no issues at all. That should be absolutely impossible worldwide, particularly for black people with the warfare that is being waged against us on the job constantly. So this is definitely not a spectator program. Feel free to chime in. And again, even if things, if things are not directly happening to you in terms of problems, what have you, this particular week or this particular month, number one, you should be appreciative. But number two, that does not mean that you are lax in your observations, what's happening around you, other things that you're seeing take place on the job. We definitely want to be sharing that information. And one of our previous investors, she has encouraged, it is helpful. We do have people that are younger listening to the program. If just reflecting back over your experiences, workplace experiences specifically, if you can remember times when you were a bit more confused about racism, and now looking back, you can recognize, oh, okay, I do think this is a moment where I was having some trouble with racism on the job. You can recall how you dealt with the situation then, maybe what you would do differently now. That can be extremely helpful for people who maybe don't have as much workplace experience, so they haven't seen as much. It's great for them to kind of know what type of things to be on the lookout for, and even to have some suggestions in terms of how you want to respond in the best way possible to minimize problems. That's it. A few things to share before we get started. Number one, Forbes.com. They have a lot of great information, whether you get the physical magazine or you just go to the website, but Forbes.com, lots and lots of great information, period. But they also tend to have a lot of segments, pieces that deal specifically with the workplace and navigating the workplace. They've had a lot of articles, office parties, how to negotiate those, questions to ask if you're interviewing for a job, if you have to explain, if you have had some time out of the workforce and you're having to explain that when you go to interview for a job. They have some great, just how you use words to explain that, particularly when you're talking to whites. There's just great information. They had an article this week. It's titled 10 Policies You'll Find in Every Toxic Workplace. It was written by Liz Ryan. I think she writes quite a few segments that deal exclusively with the workplace. And I've talked about policy and procedure on a regular basis. I think Mr. Fuller does as well in terms of read your policy and procedure. I think I've been saying for the past month at least, encouraging listeners to kind of go through your policy and procedure, see anything that stands out, if it's word use, if it's a policy that allows for a great deal of discretion, where they don't have to abide by the same policy and procedure every time with every employee. They can kind of make it up as they go, which is going to allow for a great deal of white supremacy in terms of having latitude for how they deal with employees. Really go through that policy and procedure. And I would recommend not waiting until there's an issue. Do it where you have some leisure, where there's not any stress and impending doom as you're reading. You can take your time. I've said you can make it a 2-3 week thing. Just read a little bit at a time, 10, 15 minutes, highlight, pick out things as you go. That way you'll be more familiar with the expectations of your job, and you might even learn some things that can help you out along the way. But I've read this piece this week and had a good chuckle. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just reading the beginning of it. And then, as I said, she gives it's like a list of 10 policies that you'll find in every toxic workplace. That's the name of the report. But she starts it. She says, there are lots of clues that a company or institution you're interviewing with is a bad place to work. You can tell by the way the recruiter communicates with you. You can tell from the feelings you get when you walk into the building for your job interview. You can tell in a second how friendly or unfriendly the people in the company are. You can watch them banter and joke with one another or hand you off stiffly from one interviewer to the next. The cultural clues are everywhere. All you have to do is notice them. I don't want you to accept a job offer with any organization until you've read its employee handbook cover to cover. If they won't give you the employee handbook when they're trying to get you into the company, that's a good reason to run away right there. If you were about to sign a contract, wouldn't you expect to get a look at the contract before someone stuck a pen in your hand and asked you to sign it? Of course you would. Anyone would. If you take the job, one of the first things they'll do at your new employee orientation meeting is to make you sign a piece of paper that says you've read the handbook and intend to comply with all its policies. That's why you have to have a chance to read the handbook before you accept the offer. This would go without saying, except that job seekers are so used to being beaten down and treated like dirt that it doesn't occur to most of them to ask for something as reasonable as an advance copy of their possible new employer's handbook. You have to get it because if these policies are in it, you don't want the job. I'm going to stop there. You can access the article for yourself, 10 policies you'll find in every toxic workplace. But I just thought that that was so important because I'd never thought about that. I don't think I've ever in my life for any job, even within the last, I'd say probably 15 years or so, when there's been so much online and technological advances, I don't think I've ever interviewed for a job where they said, well, here's a hard copy of our employee handbook, or, this, if you go to our website, you can click the resource button right here and you can, read the employee manual online. So, all the policies and procedures before the job. I don't think I've ever had that. I've never heard anyone recommend that, but that is a great suggestion because that will give you a lot of information. As she said correctly in the article, that'll give you a lot of clues about the environment that you're about to enter into. Might even give you information that this might not be the best environment for you right from the very beginning, just looking at their policy and procedures. And that is a great way that you can ask questions. I know that's something that people try to come up with, questions to ask when you're interviewing for a job. If you can go through that policy and procedure manual before you get the job, you can get clarification on some things real quick. And you can get that in writing so hey, I asked about this before I even took the job, and this was clarified in detail by, Ms. Smith or Mr. Johnson before I even took this job. Great article, Forbes. And as I said, they tend to have a lot of different articles that deal with workplace racism, constructive information, Forbes.com. Moving forward, people wrote in, had 3 folks who shared in, 2 folks who called in. They were asking for feedback or just something to ponder on. Number one, I actually spoke with a listener, investor, just a few days ago. They had taken a new job. It is with a drug diversion type program for people who have some sort of criminal violation involving narcotics. And so as opposed to steering them towards incarceration, as they have done gleefully, deliberately with black people for decades and decades and decades, it's, well, let's see if we can do something where you're not going to be in greater confinement, where you can get help, you can get rehabilitation for your substance abuse issues. This is a black person. They have this job, and what they said was, what stuck out to them, first of all, was that they work in an area that has a high population of black people. Very high, I think 50% or more population of black people, but most of the people that are in this drug rehabilitation program are white. That was the first thing that stood out, like, wow. And this stood out even more because there certainly are black people in this area who have substance abuse issues. They don't seem to get the same access to this program. They just get shuffled off, here's your cell, get in there and they're going to be quiet. Get your, you're going to serve your 10 years or whatever it is. Looks like lots and lots of these whites, they get shuffled off to the drug program, so they are not in greater confinement. They can get help, resources, get their life back together, and then they don't have to deal with all that when they go to get a job. Oh, wait a minute, it says you were convicted here. You, sir, oh my God. They don't have to deal with all that. Next thing, she said that it seems, once again, white people are not ignorant about racism. They keep detailed statistics on the racial classification of the people that are in the program and are at the specific facility coming in to get treatment or whatever they're supposed to do in compliance with this program. As I've stated consistently, whites are not ignorant about racism. They are meticulously informed. Next, she was presenting, I guess it was that she was having some sort of conundrum because in her position, she can violate these people. So if they're not abiding by the rules of the program, she can violate them and they can end up in greater confinement. And of course, she's working with a disproportionate number of whites. And she was saying, what to do. And my suggestion was, whatever. These are just little race soldiers. And I suspect that if they're not practicing racism, white supremacy now, once they get their act together and get over what issues they're having with their violation and what have you, they will just gain more individual power, which will enable them to mistreat, harm more black people, particularly if you're in an area that has a high number of black people anyway. I would violate them and I would not feel bad about it at all. And I said specifically, I would go exactly by the manual, and I mean to the period, to the comma, to the semicolon, by the manual. With these sort of programs, I have some familiarity. You generally are required to sign. They give you a lot of paperwork. If you're the person that's in the drug treatment program, sign this. This is what's expected from you. If you don't do it, you're going to be violated. You could possibly, face greater confinement, that sort of thing. So all the rules are made very clear if you are a participant in this program. I would make that clear. I would get them to sign it and let them know in no uncertain terms, this is what's going to happen. We're not homies. We're not friends or whatever. I want it, whatever the rhetoric on the job is, I would give it to them verbatim. And that if you mess up, this is what's going to happen. This is the policy of the program. Take advantage of this opportunity that you've been given, yada, 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 whatever they normally say. But I would not cut them any slack. I would not give them any breaks. They would be violated. Bang. First time that you mess up or whatever it is, boop, violated. And, oh, well, if that means you're back in greater confinement, that's what it means. And I guess basically the gist of it really quick, she was saying she wanted to make sure that she wasn't getting in trouble, to make it seem like, because she even said that it seems like a lot of her clients, if they did get violated, they would go to court and say that the person that was running their drug program was racist. Even if they had a black person, they would say, oh, this person is racist, they don't like white people. They would use that as their excuse to get off. Again, even the cracked out drug white fiends are not ignorant about racism. But I would just go by the book, and I would keep all that in mind, to have extensive documentation in explaining the program, what it's going to be, and just following the procedure. That's what I would do, and I would not cut them any slack at all. And I even think there's a lot of evidence that white people with a criminal record, they still do significantly better in the system of racism, white supremacy, even better than many black people with no criminal record. Moving forward, we had a person who wrote in, they had an issue. It's with commuting. I still put this under workplace racism because people have called in before with issues around commuting to and from work, and that takes up such a big chunk of our time. The basic problem, as I'm understanding it from what they wrote in, they are on the bus to get home from work in a major metropolitan area, and there is a non-white driver of the bus, and this person, I guess, wears some sort of fragrance, perfume, something. It's some, I don't know, flowery, something scented material that they're wearing, and apparently they're wearing a lot of it. And she was saying, what should I do? I don't want to get this person fired, but it's a real problem. I can smell it. I feel like it's in my clothes, like it's really disruptive. I'm generally not someone that's bothered by aromas or what have you, but it's just seems like she's wearing so much of it, or the driver's wearing so much of it, that you can smell it throughout the entire bus, whatever fragrance this is. What would be the best procedure to deal with it? If you're concerned that addressing this might get this person in trouble, you could ask them directly. and particularly if it's sounding like they are maybe wearing a perfume, or maybe they have some sort of fragrance or what have you that they're applying, and maybe they're just using too much of it. If you could just let them know that, I'm kind of sensitive to fragrances, or you could say allergies, whatever, however you want to phrase it, but just letting them know that you have some sensitivities to fragrances, and if maybe they could use less of whatever solution it is, if it's them or if it's another passenger. She was saying that she's rode the bus regularly with this person as the driver, and she can smell it when this person's the driver, so it's seeming like it is coming from this particular operator. So you can address it with them directly. You could write them a letter if you don't want to verbally have this exchange with them, if you feel like it could get uncomfortable or awkward or whatever. You could write a letter just explaining the same thing, that you have sensitivities about these fragrances, and it would be great if maybe she could wear less. If it's a perfume that she's putting on, if she could wear less. If that doesn't work, then you could maybe address the transit company directly, since it seems like it would probably just be an issue of either them wearing a different fragrance or no fragrance at all, or maybe just wearing less of it. And just phrase it in those terms you could even include that you've got great service from this person and that they've never had an attitude, you've never had a problem. You just have sensitivities around that. And if, maybe you all could ask that your drivers, if they wear no fragrance or less of a fragrance, so it doesn't become an issue for people that are on the bus and are going to be riding and having to deal with that if they have any sensitivities around fragrances and what have you that people are wearing. That's the direction I would go. If other folks have suggestions on how they would deal with that and try to minimize problems with another victim of racism, feel free to share. I'm sure she would appreciate other folks' commentary. The last thing to share before I get to other callers who dialed in, again, this came from a listener who wrote in. She had observations, things that she'd seen on her job, and just personal thoughts. So she wrote in, she said, my immediate department, there are 4 persons, including me. We also have our immediate supervisor, making the total 5. The supervisor is a white male, a so-called Jew who hired me nearly 2 years ago. The supervisor manages all 4 of us. There are 2 black people in my immediate department. One of them is me. The other is a black male. He and I have the highest level of training compared to the 2 other white people who do our same work within the department. Both of these white people are immigrants, a white male and a white female. If they had been black or otherwise non-white, I highly doubt they would have their positions, especially since they do much less work, as far as I can tell, compared to me and the other black male in the department. I have noticed that the black male and I seem to be heavily overloaded with work. Also, I learned that the black male and I were asked to do errands that do not fit at all with our job descriptions, let alone our level of training and education. The black male was asked to help a supervisor move his furniture one weekend many months ago. I was asked to drive a round trip 2 or 3 hours on a business day to pick up a blood sample to be tested in one of our labs. Mind you, I am a doctor, and transporting blood samples is not what I trained more than a decade to do. I did it, but couldn't the company have paid a medical transport company to do this? I noticed that the white people get away with things that no black person probably ever could. A white female who is not in our department once ate a lollipop during a meeting. Mind you, this was not a meeting that involved food, and certainly there was no candy bowl or lollipop bag being passed around. This was a serious meeting about strategy around key issues for the company. I looked around the room to see if anyone else thought this lollipop situation was odd. No one else seemed to be surprised or concerned. I was the only black person in the meeting. The white male in my immediate department, again, he is an immigrant with less formal training and education compared to myself and the black male. He often has his office door open with talk radio blaring into the hallway in some non-English European language. Since he does this all the time, I'm sure no one says anything to him. The white female in my immediate department seems to try and compare notes with me in regards to how much help I'm getting to perform my duties. I think she wants to be sure that I am not better than her or more successful than her, and that I am seeking as much assistance as she is. She hasn't been on the job long and seems to require more training and assistance than I did. She also likes to gossip, but I try not to do this with her. But I must admit, sometimes I find she ends up offering intelligence around what's going on in the office, which has been insightful for me in the past. This is only a sample of the things I have noticed thus far, and as my confusion lessens, I'm sure I will recognize more incidents of racism, white supremacy. I hope this report is of use to other listeners. She did have a question in there as well. She wanted to know if people thought it might be constructive, particularly if you work in an environment that has a high number of whites. I think she said in her job she has about 95% of her coworkers are white. She said, would it be beneficial if they are gossiping, if you're not participating in it, but they're gossiping around you or just talking, blah, blah, blah? Could that be beneficial if they're giving you information about your workplace or other people who work there, if they're giving you information that could be of some value later on that might even help you be able to form strategies on the job? I would say if they are giving you information about the job, that's great. As long as it's not, what I did for the weekend, and did you see the dress that, Sheila had on last week, or, Bob is stepping out on his wife. That, as long as it's not that sort of thing, if it's about the job in some way, shape, or form, and you see some way that this can be used in a constructive manner, maybe not today, maybe a year down the road, 2 years down the road, outstanding, great. I would want a reputation on the job for just being serious and, as they say, above that sort of conduct that you would never, people would just be saying, you'll never hear Gus in here talking about what such and such had on, or rumors about what they were doing for the weekend, or just anything else. Like, get that reputation for just being serious on your job, not aloof, but just serious. You're on your job. If you're talking to other people, you speak that sort of thing, but you are focused on the job, work-related tasks, information that's going to help us get our job done and get it done efficiently and in the highest quality we can possibly produce. Get that sort of reputation on the job. But if they're just going to be running off at the mouth and it is about the job, directly, indirectly, and you see some value in the information, great. Just take notes and keep it rolling. I would keep my mouth closed, again, so that it's not we were gossiping, it's he was gossiping or she was gossiping. I just am sitting here listening, getting my work done. I will pause there. The number again, 641-715-3640, and the code is 564943#. Press *6 if you would like to participate. All the folks who dialed in with a hand up should be with us. If you could watch the background noise, that would be appreciated. Use your mute button if you know you are in a noisy environment. Everyone who has a hand up should be with us.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, greetings to the host, callers, and the listener. First, I had a incident on a previous job. It was lunchtime, and I was walking past my manager with my food bowl open, and I was much more confused at the time, and I was eating some fried chicken gizzard, and as I was walking past the white female, she said, "Robert, what is that?" And I told her what it was, and she said, "Oh, I see. That's for my dog." And I have a present observation that happened with another person, black female teacher, was in the classroom setting, and she is assigned a teacher's aide to for about 38 children. So a white female walked past. I want to say supervisor. Was it the supervisor? supervisor walked past and said, I walked past the other day and I saw the A sitting down. Make sure you use her. Make sure you utilize her. And that's all I had. Thanks for taking the call.
Great reminder. I think a lot of folks have recommended over the years in terms of finding a way so that you can consume your meal on the job and you get your meal breaks totally away from whites. If it's warm enough, if the climate allows, you can eat in your car, or if you're able to go outside. I know depending on where you are, in some environments you can go outside and kind of get away from where folks are. If you are close enough that you can walk someplace else and eat, but I certainly support, or if you have an office where you can just go in and close your door and eat by yourself. But I'm always a big advocate of, if you're going to eat, to see if you can get as much distance from your white colleagues as possible. Just a variety of opportunities for racism pops up. They want to share your food or eat your food or have commentary around the food or just all kinds of things. If you can, as best as possible, try to minimize. I think people have made that suggestion many, many times over the years. If folks had questions from what they heard from our first caller, or if you had your own experiences you wanted to share, feel free.
May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Gus. Good evening to all the callers and the listeners, everybody online. It's Shin from South Florida. I was calling to give my commentary on my workplace racism. I had an incident earlier this week where I actually got fired. I actually got fired from my job as a detailer, and I've been giving my experiences over the last few weeks, about the different racism that goes on there, and about the the taking advantage of the money that we make, the stealing of the money, I should say. And so, I've first of all, I just want to say this isn't so much codified. This isn't a codified something you should do on the workplace. You know what I mean? We should be more coded in our gestures and our speech and everything that we do. But I'm coming to find out that if you are a black person that understands what you're suffering from is racism, white supremacy, it's next to impossible, at least for me, to be in that workplace that is surrounded. If it's not a work environment that is like black run, black top, black bottom, everything in between is melanated and equal and about justice, I can't work in that type of environment, because I'm not coming to find out, I know, but for a fact now, that it could be subway, it could be construction job on the side of the road, it could even be, and I'm going to speak on that, it can even be working in the drug rehab field. There is always just a complete air of supremacy, of white supremacy to be exact. You feel it, and as you said, even the excuse my language, the dirt diving ones, the ones that are just like the bottom of the bucket, the ones that in and out of jail, and they pedophiles, whatever they may be, that have drug problems, they still are very aware that they're white. They're very aware of racism, white supremacy, and they're very aware that no matter their situation, they can take full advantage of everybody that does not look like them. My situation at work, I ended up getting fired for calling out the manager just for his racist acts. There was a schedule change because the manager could not keep up with the amount of he couldn't keep up with the handling the shop. He didn't have a night crew. So whereas before we had a black manager and we didn't have a night crew, he would stay over, or he would accommodate all of those issues. Now with him, he wanted to pick other people up, pick up other workers such as myself, and give us a day or two to work at night. Most of us agreed to it and said, okay, we'll do it for a week or two. I was one of the ones that said, I'll do it for a week or two, but definitely after the second week, don't look for me to close no more. That ain't gonna happen. So this week right here happened to be the third week. So Monday, I was supposed to, as of the schedule before, I was supposed to close Monday and Tuesday. So around 4 or 5 o'clock, after him being gone all day, mind you, this is our manager. This is the person that's supposed to make sure we have clean cloths. This is the person that's supposed to make sure our chemicals are always full, that we have an abundance of paperwork because we go through it so fast. Just a manager. You manage the talent around you. You manage the people around you to do what they're supposed to do, keep the shop running. So he hasn't been there all day. So we have a radio in our shop, just like, because it's at a dealership, and you have other levels. You have the mechanics, you have the service people, you have the upfront salesmen, you have the outside salesmen, you have the people that do the finances, insurance, all that stuff. So everybody has radios in their own section. He's the only white guy back there. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but he is the only unmelanated person back there, and of course he's the manager. So he comes in, it's about 4 or 5 o'clock. So the first thing he does is turns down. So I'm in the middle of working. So as I notice I'm not hearing any tunes, I look up, and I go and, hey, who turned the radio? So I go and turn the radio back up, full blast. So where it was before. So maybe a minute or so goes by. He comes back and turns the radio down again, and he comes and stands over me. So, after like 5 minutes goes by of him standing there, I look up and I actually stand up and go to walk towards him and ask him, what's do you need me for something? What's the problem? You know what I mean? And I only do that because I know white people are scared of us, just our appearance. They're scared of our presence. So in my eyes, you're using racist tactics over me by doing little subtle things like turning the radio down, knowing you have no authority to do so. You turn the radio down, and you come and stand over me as if I'm the slave, bent over, doing some kind of work, and you're the slave master over me. So I asked him what he wanted, and he was saying such and such about I need to do later on tonight while I'm closing, I need to do such and such. I stopped him right there and said, the agreement between you, I, and the owner, I'm only doing this for at the most 2 weeks. This is the third week. That's it. I'm not closing. He started to say something else. I cut him off. There is no reason to talk. I'm not doing you any favors. I'm not doing nothing extra. I'm not closing. Period. Cut the conversation off. Saw they get the beat appearance, the cherry red appearance. It gets so bright red like a brake light. So he left, kind of, stalked off, and came back maybe 30 seconds later with an attitude, and was saying that he talked to the supervisor, which is another white guy right over him, right under the owner, and said we kind of conferred, we talked with each other, and Daryl said that the supervisor, Daryl said that you have to close. If you're on the schedule to close, you have to close. That's just, I say, no, that's not policy. Policy is if I agree to the schedule, if I agree to the change, then that's in black and white. That was not what happened. The agreement was that I would only do it for a week or two, and after that, it's cut off, nothing more. Mind you, I'm not the only one that did this, but I am the only one that's very vocal about my stance, very unapologetic, and I must admit, and it is to my detriment, sometimes because I get kind of heated, because I know I know what's going on, I kind of walk with an air of like I strut. You know what I mean? Because I know you don't want me out here. You're looking at me crazy. You're doing little subtle things, little racist things that somebody that doesn't understand might don't pick up on, but I'm noticing it. So this is my way of showing you that I notice it, I see it, but you still can't do nothing. So, like I said, beginning to get very upset, talking loud, all kind of just very get into the belligerent stage. So, I just continue to let them know that, look, all this yelling and all, arms flailing, completely unnecessary. I don't want it to go there, but I don't mind. You know what I mean? So now I put my mind frame into the mode of I'm trying to provoke them to hit me because I feel like I'm gonna lose my job anyways now. So if I can get them to hit me, like I said, this is not codified. This is not something that I say anybody else should do. You know what I mean? Do not do this. Unless you feel this way, then hey, you got to do what you got to do. But just started to provoke him, to get him to do something to me, to kind of touch me or something like that. So then I could, I would have the physical touching, because there's other guys out there. I would have the physical threat, the words of uncodified racism, the nigger, and you gonna go back to your country, all that kind of stuff. I'm drawing it out. And as I'm trying to draw it as I am, it's working. He's starting to say these things. He's starting to flail and just all kind of stuff. Long story short, he ended up calling the police because he wanted me to leave, said I had to leave and such, blah, whatever. But I didn't leave because I knew I didn't have to. He said I was fired, but he didn't have the authority to fire me. This is what the owner of the company told me. Again, a white guy as well. But he told me, I called him right before. He said, don't worry about it, Sin. I'll talk to Aaron tomorrow. Everything's cool. Do what you got to do. So I go and go to get another car. He jumps in front of the car. I go to back up. He kind of moves to the side because it's a car behind me that I have to go around. So as I pull up forward, he tries to make himself closer to the car so I can hit him. So he'll have a reason to tell the cops, oh, and he hit me with a car, so they can come lock me up. So I politely just backed all the way around the long way, backed the car into my slot where I detailed. By that time, the cops had showed up. So me, I wait till the slave catcher gets out of his car, and Aaron, the manager has approached him, and they're talking, conversing. So I wait till he gets out, and then I go straight to the side on the curb, my hands down. As after he finishes, I introduce myself, ask him his name. He tells me, we shake hands, and I explain the situation. He explains to both of us there's nothing he can do. This is a workplace situation that has to be settled by the owner. And furthermore, that he should not have been called, but he went with the codified talk. I have to de-escalate. I have to make sure the situation is de-escalated, such. Pretty much telling me, you're the black guy, so you kind of got to leave. If you leave, everything will be all right. You know what I mean? So I ended up leaving. As I said, that was Monday. Tuesday, I called the owner, left a message. He didn't call me back. But I found out today that they had a meeting, and everybody, all the detailers, everybody else that works, that's not a manager, they gave it to him. Gave it to the CEO. When I say gave it to the owner, they express everything that has been going on, the lack of managerial skills, the lack of people skills, the racist torment and all those kind of things. So I don't know if he has his job anymore or not, but it was a situation. Of course, it didn't have to go where it did, but I personally didn't care. I love finances. I love what a job does for me as far as economic empowerment, but economic empowerment versus my dignity and my respect, there is no comparison. I'm going to be respected, or I'm just not going to be around. And like I said, it makes me mad that I lost the job in that way, but it gives me a sense of pride to know that I called him out for everything that he was doing, and on top of that, everybody else called him out for everything that he was doing and spoke in spoke about it exactly what it was. It was racism. No, it's not you being too friendly. It's racism. No, it's not you might have bumped into somebody, might have just been standing. No, it's racism. Period. Point blank. So that's my and I wanted to add about what you were saying about the drug rehab, drug prevention type of scene. It is exactly as you explained it. You have all around, especially in the South Florida area, these places like Delray and Oakland and Oakland Park and Boynton Beach. You have black families forced out by whatever means, different means, and you have coming in rehab homes because it's all about money. It's all there is no Section 8, there is no housing or anything like government assisted housing with that. It's all strictly paid for by the insurance companies. It's funded by the government, and they're all white kids. And it's so hard for anybody black to get into the bureaucracy and the politics that they have to go through just to show that they have a chemical dependency to something. It's crazy. I did that for maybe like 7 or 8 months. I was a tech. I did the when they do their urinalysis, I did that. When they have their paperwork and things like that sent over to inpatient, outpatient programs, I did that. I even helped sometimes with the transport. I did the searches of all of them. All white children, all come from, mostly the northeast area, but it was still some from like Colorado and Seattle and different places like that. All focused down here. All the homes are in places that are high crime areas as far as drug activity. High drug activity. I mean, to the point where just a few months ago, they were in and out of that same community, busing homes for pill, not pill mills, but these people that were operating with pill mills. And these were the homes where they were living or doing business out of. Knocking them off left and right. Still knocking them off. But you have these white children living in these homes. They're not getting, they're going to their little whatever IOPs and all that other stuff. The cycle is they come down here to look as though they're doing something, to get on better drugs that they have up north, to go and fall and go into IOP, to get right back out and get right back in either that house or another house, and keep repeating the cycle over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what's happening. They're not they locking them up, but they're getting the sweet sentences and all that stuff. And in every one of these communities that I told you was bad before, oh man, it's like 10 times worse now, because you had streetwalkers of people for survival. You have streetwalkers like zombies now. They out there. So I definitely, as I listened to that commentary, I definitely was in agreement. I seen it, I lived it. So, and I just wanted to give my part of their workplace racism, and I'll mute my line. Thank you.
For sure. Definitely, that is unfortunate, is putting it mildly, with your the workplace situation that you experienced, and all of the terrorism from the white, and even having the enforcement officials. That's always a horrendous experience, and you have to deal with armed race soldiers, and then on the job. That's if ever there was a double whammy, that would be one. If other folks, if they have thoughts or suggestions they want to add to what we just heard from a male caller in Florida who's chimed in a few times, you can feel free. I did want to add, though, just when you started your commentary, when you were talking about for victims of racism, black people specifically, when you start to understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, how it works, and the difficulty of being in a work environment around whites and knowing what that means, they're racist, and how they're mistreating you, and just everything about this system, how it can be so difficult. And I think people have spoken to that before, particularly once you start to become less confused, where it can just be really challenging to be in that environment, to just be in their presence, period. It's just stressful. I think we've had enough commentary from folks talking about being on work situations or other areas, but certainly work situations where there are no whites, They are just around other victims of racism, and the problem is still there. That's just what racism, white supremacy produces. That's why I've said consistently, if you're a black person, if you are self-employed or an entrepreneur, or if you're on a job, I think it's even written in the description that way. If you're a black person and you work on a job and it's exclusively black people, there's not one melanin deficient person on the premises, you're still going to have to deal with racism, white supremacy, just in terms of how we've been conditioned and what have you. I even played before we got our intro today with Mr. Fuller. I was playing the segment about Carter G. Woodson. We talked about that a few weeks before, and we certainly have heard for years a myriad of testimony about the difficulties people have had with black supervisors. And even I think Princess, she called in and was talking about some of the problems she was having with black coworkers who either were not listening or did not want to resolve the situation where they had to go up to the higher-ups who invariably were white people to get some of these problems resolved. So that was one thing I wanted to add. And then just the other thing that I think is important, just following logic. Again, when I hear that word dignity, I'm reminded of Mr. Fuller when he says, what's the difference between a dignified slave and a slave that is not dignified? To leave it there for folks who've heard it. But I do think it's important for all of these jobs. Racists didn't exactly, not in 2016 generally, they do not exactly show up with a gun or a whip at your residence and say, you're going to come on this job 40 hours a week or 30 hours a week or 50 hours a week or whatever you do. Generally, we ask for the job. Now, that is required by the system of white supremacy. You have to have employment so that you can get, a few nickels to take care of yourself. That is all by racist design. But you did ask for the job. You generally want to keep it until you are ready to leave and you already have a plan. That's, in my view, just the essence of codification. You want to be able to codify things so that if you do not want to be on this job, you can leave so that things will work out in the best manner possible for you. I think that's one of the things that I really try to recommend, encourage for victims of racism, that if you did ask for the job, figure out the best way of managing being on that job until you are ready to leave, and then codify so that you can have the best exit possible for how you want to leave that job and whatever else you want to do afterwards. I think a lot of times racists get us in these situations where they are terrorizing us on the job, and we just, end up quitting on the spot or whatever the case may be where we leave, and it kind of just adds more problems. Now we have to kind of juggle and all that. And I mean, racists are most to blame. I mean, being very clear, racists are most to blame. This is their design, but just that is something that I do try to encourage for us to be codified. And again, codified being, if I'm upset, if I'm feeling that this is not the best situation for me, then let me be proactive in finding a different spot so that it does not end up being something where I'm upset on the job and being upset all day, or, I think we had a caller last week who was talking about wearing his, quote unquote Afrocentric shirt or wearing my Nat Turner shirt every day and that sort of thing, because generally that just produces more problems for us. It doesn't solve any problems. It does not improve our situation, generally speaking. Racists, they generally have no problem getting us out of a job, even if it means calling the race soldiers, as they did in the situation that we heard. Did folks any suggestions or any thoughts on what we heard from the caller? We're just talking about his situation where they called the police and all of this, just ugly terrorism, I guess, for the past week or so.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Gus. Thomas Smith in New York. I have workplace racism myself, but listening to the caller, and if I could just say, man, he really went all out. It's no job you're going to have in this country that I've seen. There's no black multinational corporations out here. I live in a city with 3 million black people. We don't own nothing. So you're not going to find that black business. It's just not, it don't exist. It don't exist in this country. So, I think that the codified thing probably would have been is, understanding that there's a system and working within the system with that understanding, not rebelling, because that's not gonna, that could have landed you in prison. That could have landed you getting shot. I mean, they called the cops on you. White people called the cops on you. I mean, anything could have happened. So, yeah, I don't think that was a good idea. Probably would have been best to stay that night and definitely make it very clear that that's the last night. And get it in wording and writing, yeah, that's it. Thank you for doing this favor for me just for tonight, they probably would have said. But definitely the way you handled it was, I wouldn't advise it. Just like you said you wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't either.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, everyone. Can I ask the caller? Could you give us a approximacy of your age?
I'm 37 years old.
37?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any offspring?
Yes, sir, I do. I have 2 daughters and 1 son.
Okay, just like the last caller was stating. First of all, I appreciate the points in your testimony that you were saying that was not codified, and I'm in agreement of the things that you said that were probably not codified, and also on suggesting of what should not be done. All of us, including the person that's talking right now, have made some of the same decisions that you were speaking about, and in some cases regrettable. Part of what I think would be an improvement is to have expectations. What are your expectations when it comes in terms of the people activity of employment? As you know, because I've heard you talk, we're in the global system of racist white supremacy. So you can depend on under those conditions that white people are not going to behave in a way that's going to have smiles on our faces in employment. There are going to be, it's going to be some times where things are functioning and you're able to get there in the morning and leave at the end of the day, and there's some bit of constructivity during that period of time. But also on a routine basis, the expectation is that you're gonna have some kind of confrontation, something that is not favorable to you as a non-white black person. But yet, at the same time, if you have that expectations, you probably would be in a better mind to be prepared to be able to navigate constructively through that particular incorrectness that took place with you. But if you're angry, if you coming in there with the idea in mind that I'm gonna get this straight and get angry, then you're probably not gonna make very good decisions. If it's a consistent thing, getting a job, getting fired, getting a job, getting fired, then in the course of 20, 30 years, you're probably not going to have your finances not going to be to whereas you would like them to be for yourself and your family, as far as that concern. So I would say, and I think Gus mentioned it earlier, and I'm just going to basically concur with it, is that when you go into that people activity, you have to have a plan. You have to have to come in codified. Mr. Edward Williams, who wrote a pamphlet suggesting that the U.S. Constitution can assist us into preventing us from getting fired or preventing issues and problems on a job. The first thing he has in that pamphlet is that if you wait until you get yourself in some of the situations that you were telling us, you might as well don't even read the book, read the pamphlet. In other words, at the time you are, as Gus mentioned, asking for that job, you are already prepared in a codified way on, for what is going to be coming, at you, in the terms of racism and white supremacy. And you're able to, from there, have a more codified means of dealing with the problem or the issue, as opposed to reacting based on emotion and or anger. The pride thing, whatever that means. I mean, at my age, I'm not sure on what that means all the time under the global system of racism and white supremacy. In my mind, I think what has to happen before that takes place, or we have to develop kind of meaningful. We have to deal with neutralizing the global system of racism and white supremacy first, and then we can have some kind of focus on something called pride and that sort of thing. In the meantime, just try to have some codification, at your next attempt at employment. Just a suggestion, sir. Thank you.
Did folks have any other observations or thoughts based on what they heard from the male caller who just shared down in Florida? Not retired firefighter, the one who was talking about all the terrorism they experienced on the job. Anybody else have any observations, thoughts, suggestions?
Just one more thing. It was the earlier report that you talked about, Gus. I think it was something like was the person that you was reading was that person, was she a doctor or was she working in a doctor's office?
She said she was a doctor. I got the impression from what she wrote that it was like a lab facility, or they're doing some sort of research or testing.
Okay, good. Because the reason why I asked, because that's good that she's a doctor, because I'm thinking that as far as a non-white black person, let alone talking about a non-white female that's a doctor, I'm just going to break it down to the shortest term. She just go in and get another job somewhere. I mean, I don't think it's probably with the whole thing about a job is difficult to get, but but in terms of the frequency of someone in a profession that can switch from job to job based on what their needs are or what they would like to see out of some employment, I would figure a doctor would be high up on that list, especially a black female that's a physician. So I mean, because that was like a horror story on some of the things that she was reporting on what was going on. And I mean, I'm like, just go to another job, get another job somewhere else. I could be wrong, but I just think with the skills that a physician has to accomplish to be a physician, and in terms of a black physician per capita of people, it is very few black doctors, period, let alone talking about black female doctors. And so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think she can go get her another job somewhere I'm not going to say very easily, but she can go get another job somewhere, as opposed to that horror hole where she was working at. Anyway, if I need to be corrected, I am listening.
I agree, man. She could definitely come and get a job here in Harlem. We could definitely use some black doctors with all the black people we have. And as far as the lady who or the gentleman who worked at the facility where they have all these white people getting the services that black people don't, well, that happens everywhere. Plenty of those here in New York. Type of programs that You might know a black person that went to it, but, they was one of the few. They have these graduation programs and things, and when you go to the graduation program, like, man, where all these white people come from? They definitely not in this neighborhood, so I definitely see that happening as well. And last thing I wanted to say, for what the guy said, I've never seen a situation where a black person is going to put white people in their place. That's just not going to happen, especially not at the job. I go into the job expecting racism and white supremacy to happen, and knowing that, they're in control. I need the job, and I just wish you luck on your next workplace that it doesn't have the same experience.
For sure. I definitely agree there. That's something I think is important to keep in mind too, just the dynamics of what racism, white supremacy means. Is very few situations that as a victim of white supremacy, you're going to be able to go in and say, I'm going to win this one. I'm going to put these whites in their place, and they're going to know what's up by the time I get done. Like, generally, that's not going to happen in the system of white supremacy. And as Thomas in New York said, particularly on the job, they pretty much have got that and the whole planet on lock in terms of what's going to happen, whether that means that they have to get security or enforcement officials, or they tamper with your wages, which I think the caller who was talking about this, I think he had said before that they had been doing that anyway. They have a variety of ways of controlling what's going to happen there and all around the world. So I just think it's really important. Certainly they are terrorizing us, and that has a real life impact on us. And certainly all of us justifiably furious about what is done to us, but you still want to be able to manage that and plan, strategize about the best way to try to deal with things moving forward, because they can cause so many problems. I mean, even it's been my experience for a lot of whites. I think the retired firefighter in Florida, he was saying that, they communicate. They'll just network. When you try to go get that next job, just feel like, oh, yeah, that nigga real rebellious. We had to call the police on him. Doesn't matter if they're lying. They'll just make it up as they go, oh, yeah, that nigga, you don't want to hire him at all. He was real trouble. He messed up everything. Took us a month to get things straight after he was here and messed everything up. So it just follows you and follows you and follows you and makes it real, real difficult for you to get employment. As he was saying, it can just have a real ruinous effect on your finances for years. That's kind of what racist white supremacists have in mind to happen under this system. Just real important to keep that in mind. Did other folks have commentary on what they heard on his situation, or if you wanted to add anything, if we misconstrued or misunderstood anything that you shared with us, sir? Right on. Folks, anything comes to mind that folks want to share on that as we move forward, feel free. Again, that is standard. That's why we have workplace racism. I'll just conclude that is standard. Exactly what he had talked about, and even I think over the past month that he had been sharing about a lot of the different things that they had been doing to purposely provoke him. I think this was the same male caller who talked about the white guy that would come and get in his space where he felt it was he was doing it in a homoerotic, racist manner, to come and get in his space on a regular basis and tell silly jokes and know that you got to respond because you have less power than I do as a white man on this job, and I control your schedule, that sort of thing, and tampering with the wages that I mentioned before so that his compensation was not matching up with the amount of hours that he had actually worked, that sort of thing leading up. That's happening all the time, impacting our spiritual well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, financial well-being, just totality. That's why this program exists, just so that we can grasp that this is not an individual thing. It's not you, anything that you did. This is by design. Racists, they sit around and look forward to these opportunities just to jab at us and abuse us and terrorize us and then find a way. Yes, we can fire them. Yes, right on. So we want to do anyway and just keep it moving. I think he'd even been saying that they had been doing a whole lot of terminating employment of black people on that job anyway. So standard operating procedure. If other folks had commentary they wanted to share, if you had your own experiences as well, feel free.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Gus, and to the callers and listeners. Well, I'll share my observations this week. First thing I'll share, we had a white lady who is, I would say she's had a little bit of seniority, from what I understand, as a secretary at the law firm, and she broke one of their policies, and it's about overtime. So apparently she she lives in Flint, Michigan, and she commutes to the Detroit area every day, and she's always late every single day. And so I guess when she gets to work, it's around 10 a.m., between 10 and 11. And our office hours, what it is outlined in the policy, is from 9 to 5, or you can work from 8 to 4 or 7 to 3, or, just whatever. You have to just work within those hours for the most part. And she gets there at 10, between 10 and 11. She would, work overtime and stay late till about 7 o'clock, I guess. And then it also says in the policy that you have to work no more than 40 hours, and anyone working overtime without approval of the law firm administrator will be subject to discipline or termination. And so Monday through Friday, she will work these long 10-hour days, and on Friday, she's over the 40 hours and would want to leave early to make it back to Flint. That's what happened. So she got fired today, and she was everyone's, friend, and they were all crying and all upset and shocked. And I found it interesting because the office manager, we typically have a weekly meeting, and she canceled it because the holiday is coming up. But once they fired their secretary, all the gossiping started and all the whispers, and it was a lot of, just people were just they stopped working, and I was just observing how taken aback they were. And she called an emergency meeting, which I thought was interesting. They fired people before. Actually, since I've been at this law firm, they fired a black attorney and another person that was non-white. There was no emergency meetings called, and so the office manager called an emergency meeting to explain. She wanted to make sure she was thorough about the policy and, just reassure all these white secretaries. And, it was just interesting how she felt so compelled to go over this policy and to encourage us to read the policy and understand that if you need help, that you don't, just ask. You don't have to break the policy, because she didn't want to be in a position to do that again. And, they were just it was really interesting to observe. So I thought that was interesting. Another thing that happened this week was I've shared with the listeners before my journey of trying to, wear my natural hair, and I'm just, it's a new thing for me. And so I still have extensions in my hair, but it's a natural look, so to speak. So I have a curly like afro. And so I went I've been wearing it for about a week. And today, one of the white women that sits in the area, she was like, "Oh my goodness, I just love your hair. I love your hair." And she said, "I'm just so glad to see black women going back to wearing their hair naturally and the afros. I love it." And so she is, I think she said she's 60 years old, and she puts a lot of spritz and stuff. She's like, I try to go for that look, but I just love it. And she, I just kind of looked at her because I was like, first of all, just kind of shocked that she was talking to me, period, about my hair, and wanted to make a big deal about it. So I thought that was strange. And so about 5 minutes later, she said, I hope I didn't offend you by saying black or saying black women. Is it okay if I say black? Is it okay? Can I say that? Or do you prefer if I call you African American? I have a lot of black friends, but they don't like it when I call them African American because you guys aren't from Africa. And so I was just looking at the lady like she was from the Twilight Zone. And she said, "So, is it okay?" I said, "Well, actually, I would prefer if you just call me my name. I don't understand what you're talking about." And so she just kind of laughed and said, "Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I just sound so stupid." And I just, put my earplugs in and just, start working. So that was just weird. Again, when you, they always want to talk about your hair and make a big deal about that. And then the last thing that I'll share is they definitely have this issue with, you being quiet and not being talkative. And this is just the norm. And so today, and I've taken the tips because I've been in this is my third or fourth law firm since I think I've been listening to the call. Well, I know now, I don't take anything. It's just, my purse, I'll have my cell phone, and I don't take pictures. I don't do any of that. And so I guess now that makes them uncomfortable. So they were asking about, I know you have children. Do you have any pictures? Why don't you bring pictures of your children? Or, decorate your space, or what do you like? And so they're trying to just figure me out. It's really interesting because all the things that we're talking about is manifest every day, every time I'm just in that space, and they're predictable now. So I just want to share those terroristic observations this week.
That is lovely about the concern. It sounds like White Lives Matter. I'm going to start saying that specifically since they were so sad about the terminated white chick who lost her job for violating policy. Particularly if they bring it up like in a meeting, I might even request, and I would use that word specifically, may I request that we have a policy and procedure review just to make sure that everybody's clear on expectations, if we have any troubles. I mean, we don't have to go through the entire thing, but just kind of a refresher course so that we don't have any of these problems again. I might even make that request because then anything that has been an issue, this person is hugging me, there's a discrepancy in terms of some people are able to come in an hour late and I have to be here 5 minutes early, or anything that has popped up as an issue. Now we can go through the policy and ask, so what's supposed to happen if someone is making jokes about penis size? What's supposed to happen if, employee A comes in 60 minutes late and nothing is done, and this employee consistently is reprimanded or given some sort of verbal warning for coming in 5 minutes late? All of that I would even ask. And if they're having a refresher, even if they don't give like a whole training session to going over policy and procedure, if it comes up, someone has violated policy and procedure and we want to go over, that is a great time. If you've been going over policy and procedure yourself, if you have any questions, if there's a policy that's not clear, you went through your manual and you see that there's a discrepancy in terms of this is what the policy is, but it's not enforced, or it's not enforced in a standard manner, that is a great time to ask a question about policy. And that's why I say that is central. Make sure you go through that policy and procedure and don't wait until, the stuff hits the fan, as they say. The whole hair situation, I'm not surprised. That's the standard tackiness from whites on the job. The name, just call me my name. That's brilliant. And another word you can use for folks, if there's a question about, why you don't have pictures up or why you haven't decorated your office space, utility. I am all about utility, and things need to have a purpose that are on my desk. You can even say in my work experience I've seen where it just gets really out of control and people have all this stuff on their desk that has nothing to do with their job, and then it took forever and we had to have clean up our desk day, and it took all day, and we had all these trash cans around, and I just vowed I'm never going to get there again. Only stuff I want on my desk is going to help me get my job done efficiently. I'm all about utility in my workspace. They should be able to accept that, no question.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I would say about one of the things the lady was talking about, flattery by white people is a gateway for them to get into your business, to get deep. I applaud you because it seemed as though it bounced off. It didn't get in. You were prepared for it. So I applaud you on that. Unfortunately, I have observed that it has been a highly successful tactic by white people. And I would say in the last part of my employment, I saw it frequently with white females, with non-white black females, to be very successful. with the flattery, then it'll be a perceived comparison of personal lives, and then there you go. Then you become a target, an issue, that sort of thing. And so, but I applaud you that it seemed as though that you were prepared for that, and that's what I was speaking about earlier as far as being codified. When you're codified, you kind of like can stay ahead of the white people who are practicing racism, and be prepared. A lot of times when it comes to them asking me questions, I don't know if one can do that on their job, but I would just ignore it. In a lot of cases, if I felt like if it was a particular type of question, I would just ignore it and wouldn't say anything to it, and eventually the person would get it, so to speak. They would get it, based on me just totally ignoring it, walking right past them. It wasn't like it may not have been a situation that would be right close to me, but saying something, I was like, no, keep going about my business or something like that, and normally that person would get it and just kind of like, okay, well, he doesn't want to be bothered, that sort of thing. But then again, the job that I was on, the nature of it may be different from somebody else's, but that was just my recommendation. But yeah, I think you got it. I think you was already codified, prepared with the whole scenario with the flattery. But it is a very good racist tactic that they've been using for a long time. That's all I have to say right now.
May I be heard?
If you could speak up a little bit, ma'am, that would help.
Okay. Is this better?
Yes.
Good evening, Gus, and to the callers and to the listeners. This is a female caller from New York, and I just wanted to relay a story that situation that happened to me during my 23-year career with employment, and that came to an end last November, since the previous female caller mentioned something about how the white woman asked her if she had children. I just wanted to say that white people at your workplace don't give a rat's tushbone about your children. And my situation was with a racist white female director. Her son, who was a second-year medical student, had some heart issues and fell out during his residency or something like that. I don't know. And she took about 4 months off, 3 to 4 months off from work, and she had everybody except me on the floor in a big tizzy about her son and, little Danny and his heart, and he's going to have surgery, and she's sending emails and updates, and, I was just deleting them. Okay? So, everybody was just all, she had everybody all wrapped up into Danny's situation. He's a grown man, and he had a little bad heart, and, they had money for medical school and all of that. His father was a doctor, and she made sure she always talked about how his father was a doctor, even though she divorced the man or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, so about a year later, my little 8th grader, my son, he had some issues where he had this accident, and he had a disease in his legs, and he had to have 5 surgeries. And I was out of work for 7 months because I had to take care of my child, not a grown man, a child, as a single attempted parent, having to do everything that I have to do. And thank God for my dad, rest his soul, because he would be homeless and he would be sick if it wasn't for him supporting us financially. And then I came back to work being obedient supervisor I needed to be. And, I sat there and I caught up to everything. I sat down with my staff. I made a schedule out. My supervisor didn't have to ask me anything. The mid-level supervisor didn't have to ask me anything. I presented to her exactly how I was going to plan on catching up with all of my staff and their work and doing everything that I needed to do to be able to, as best I can, make up for 7 months of being out of work and being traumatized with all that my son had to go through, and being emotionally stable for him as well. So it was a rough summer, and another supervisor, her husband had a heart attack or something, and she was out for about a week or so I had to cover for her. So there was a part of her summer that no one knew, and it was really difficult assignment because it had to deal with a lot of court-mandated issues for the individuals that we were representing. And really no one wanted this assignment. But anyway, I had to cover for her, and there was one aspect of the assignment that I did not know. I mean, I don't know a lot of it, but there was one particular part of it that was really kind of vague. I know it was real vague, and it had to do with something about accounting. I went to this racist director, and I asked her about it, and she was like, I don't know. And I was like, oh boy. And I said, okay. I said, so when is the person starting about it? When is she coming back? And I remember she said on Tuesday, and this was a Friday. I said, okay. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to complete the assignment. When she comes back on Tuesday, I'll ask her about what that particular portion is about. Well, this white racist woman looked at me, and I saw a horn shoot up from her head, and I saw fangs come out from her mouth. And she looked at me and she said, you were out for 7 months. And it was as if she was ready to throw it in my face. And I just looked at her and I said, yes, I was. I was in Mexico, okay? So I just thought, I kind of backed off, but I didn't say anything. But, she just really, she pissed me off. And I said, you know what, I'm already going through this emotional stuff, and I'm just trying to get my bearings back. I'm not going to go off on this thing. You were out for 7 months. I said, okay, never mind. So, I went to my supervisor, and I told her what she said, and I told her how she said it. And my supervisor, another white woman, she said, you know what? She was probably waiting for you to say something. She was waiting to say that to you. I said, yeah, I had a feeling about that, but I left it alone. I didn't say anything. Okay, so fast forward about another 5-6 months maybe, her daughter was pregnant with twins. Again, she went, this is a very narcissistic type, what do you call it, bipolar type chick. You know what I mean? One of those white women. So, my daughter's pregnant, everybody pay attention to me. I'm like, she's not pregnant. Oh, she's having twins and everybody again. Okay. I was going to give her a baby shower. And I'm looking at these people like, what are you giving her a baby shower for? She's not having a baby. I said, okay, never mind. So, until the rooms were done and everything, I sat in my office. I had my door cracked. I was doing my work because it's not written anywhere in any policies that I participate in anybody's baby shower, birthday party, Christmas parties, divorce parties, whatever you're having. That's not written anywhere in anybody's policy. I sat in my office because you know what? I remember you didn't give a damn about my child. I don't give. Excuse my French. You didn't care anything about my child. I don't care anything about the 2 urchins that your white daughter is having. So I just wanted to say that when it comes to your children, try to reveal as little as possible about that. I mean, if administrators to have. Don't put no pictures up of them. Keep that totally out of the workplace, because they don't care anything about your children. Their children is the only ones that matter, and they expect you to jump up and down and do cartwheels for the achievements and all of the milestones and everything that goes on in their life. But when it comes to yours, they don't care nothing about that. So I just wanted to say that, and I'll mute my line.
Wow. The free HD line, it clicked a little bit at certain points, but I was able to hear what you said. It just wasn't as crystal clear. But for listeners, if anybody did have difficulties, even before, just kind of giving a quick synopsis in case anybody had any trouble. The Black Self-Respect for Black Parents, the caller in New York mentioning the assistance she got from her father in helping when her child had some medical difficulties and she wasn't able to work for an extended period of time, and her father being able to help make sure that they were financially stable for that period until she could get back to work. Definitely, Black fathers, Black mothers, super, super important. But just emphasizing the point that the female caller in Michigan had made previously about not having pictures up. Racist whites, they do not care about our children. They don't care about you either, but they definitely do not care about our offspring or anybody else in your family, husband, anyone else that you would have a picture of, your wife, your husband, whomever else. And just talking about the disparity that she observed in her own situation in terms of all of this sympathy when this white woman, her daughter was having twins and they're having a baby shower for her, even though she's not the one that's pregnant. She's not the one that's going to be bearing children, but they're having a baby shower for her, and they're looking like they want to get an attitude because you're not coming to celebrate in the shower and bring gifts and celebrate more racists coming into existence. And another colleague, a different racist on the job, where a grown person in her family got injured, and everyone is, oh my gosh, we can't believe this. And this is a grown person, not a child. And nowhere near the same type of sympathy was extended to her. In fact, when she's coming back and trying to get caught up and get things together so she can get back on her job and be doing what she's supposed to do, it's an attitude like, oh my gosh, you were out for 7 months, with just total disgust and disdain, not sympathy, not compassion, not concern that your child had this serious illness, just really magnifying that. And I suspect many of us can relate to that in terms of there not being that same type of compassion. Again, white lives matter. The female caller in Michigan, where she just said that everyone was in tears and they had to have an emergency meeting because this white woman was fired. They fire Black people all the time. And there's no tears and sadness and emergency meeting and, oh my God, I'm going to miss this person and all that. I mean, it's clear. They articulate that every day. The lack of value that they have for Black life, any Black life, being juxtaposed with how concerned they are for any white person, drug addict white person, geriatric white person, anybody. You will garner more sympathy than a Black person. That's just the system of white supremacy that we live in. But yeah, just really underlying, I think, with both of those, just really underlying the importance of why you don't want to engage in a lot of unnecessary chatter about your family, children, that sort of thing, because it's not going to be any payoff, and you really don't want to be giving up unnecessary information about your family. And the main point, they do not care about us anyway, you, your children, your family at all. So it's really not serving a point at all. You're just giving them more information that they can use against you and be more informed about victims of racism that they intend to terrorize if they're not doing it already. Folks have commentary they want to share on what they heard from our female caller in New York or the caller in Michigan, any of the other callers that you've heard from thus far, or if you had your own instances, observations, or suggestions that you wanted to add, feel free.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, hello. Caller from the 712. I got a couple things that I've been observing at my job. I mean, I get it just like everybody else at work, but I try to stay to myself and just stay away from people. One thing I can say, I don't know if this will work for everybody, but when racist suspects try to come up to me for small talk or chatter, I'll always say something pertaining to slavery, or they'll ask me something and I'll reference something I might have read in medical apartheid, or the half has never been told, or something. And I noticed that gets them away from me. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know, maybe somebody might want to use that. And my work observations are, I work around a lot of different people, so-called Latino people, people from Ethiopia, Kush, people from Somalia, and Cambodia. So a lot of different people I work around. And I noticed that the so-called Mexicans or Latino people that I work around, I noticed something that's kind of similar to what us as Black people have been known to do. So it was this, like not a supervisor, but right under the supervisor. He comes in to work, and we're all at our workstations getting everything ready. And he was talking to a group of other Mexican people, so-called Mexican people that were on my side. And he was yelling at them in Espanol, but I know he was cussing them out. So he's like yelling at them and saying whatever. So I asked the person next to me, I asked my coworker, he's so-called Mexican. I said, I bet you he's cussing you all out. Isn't he saying some cuss words to y'all? He's like, yeah, he does that. He does that every morning. But when the USDA people came, because I work around food, and the USDA workers, they make a lot more money, and just happen that all of them are white. So when they come down the stairs, he's like, oh, hi, good morning, buenos dias, just being so polite. But then when he turns back to his Mexican friends, he's like cussing them out. But it's kind of a friendly, I guess, cuss out. It's just non-constructive way of communications. But that's one work observation I noticed, and I was like, that's interesting. I know some people that do that. And also, most of my workers, like if a supervisor or something comes up to them and they're like working, they would say like a joke that's not funny, or it's not offensive, but it wouldn't be funny. It's a flat joke. It's a corny joke, but you can notice how they just belt out laughter, like, oh, it's so funny, it's so funny, but it really wasn't that funny. It was kind of a nervous laughter. And that's another observation that I made. And the last one is a Sudanese woman. We were talking about one of our supervisors who was a Black man, and we got on the subject of our children, and we were saying how tall that this Black man's daughter is. And then I was like, yeah, I know her mom, and I know the supervisor too. And her mom is really, really tall. And the Sudanese says, oh, yeah, and isn't she white too? And I said, yeah, she's white. And the Sudanese woman asked me, she says, are your children don't you have children by a white man, or do you have children by white men? And I said, no. I was like, no, I don't. All my children, their father is Black. And she says, oh, why? I don't know if she was really wanted to know my answer, or was like, I can't believe you don't have children with a white person. And she was like, oh, why? And I said, well, I just think if you do that, you'll get sick. Like, they can make you sick. And this other man was walking by us, and he's a Somalian man, and he says, yes, for sure, you will get sick. And he just kept walking, and she kind of looked at me, and I just shook my head, and we just kept working. So those are the couple things that I've been noticing at work. Mostly observations. Like I said, I have troubles too at my job, but I mainly try to stay out of the way. I don't sit there and have lunch with people and talk to them. I sit by myself, and I don't know. I just always keep my resume on the ready because you never know at these jobs. And that's all that I had. And thank you.
Keeping the resume updated. I always think that is highly recommendable for victims of racism. Other folks have commented that they wanted to add either what they heard, some of the observations. I always think it's great when you can see observations where the other victims of racism, where you see similarities in how they are mistreated and or how they respond to white supremacy. That's similar to how black people are mistreated and or respond. But if folks had any other observations, insight you want to share as well, feel free. You should be with us, especially if we have not heard from you yet. Feel free.
Have you heard?
Let's get our female caller, and then we'll get Thomas in New York. 9490.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to let you know, I found this show about a week ago, and I have been binge watching your archives for like a week. It's not really new information. It just really reconfirms everything that I already knew about white people. And the first episode that I actually watched was I was researching some information on black women and their hair. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that. But let me get into this job situation, because we had someone you read a letter from who they were a doctor. Then we had someone who was a lawyer. And now you're going to hear from a dental assistant. So I would like to dispel the notion that black people are not educated. In fact, I've gone to interviews and had people tell me I was too educated when I tried to step outside of that field and do something different. The thing I wanted to say about I can go on with these little anecdote stories forever. I worked at a temp agency, and of course, I would just go out and work for the day, but I would get all these rapid fire questions, as it was put in the last session, from people about, where are you from, your life, and I live in Portland, so there are obviously a deficient amount of black people out here. So, especially when you show up on a job or for an interview, it's very evident about. Well, I mean, when I first started in the medical community, I was 22 when I got out of school, and I had a dentist. And he always left out for lunch, always. Whether he went to the gym, whether he went home, he had a wife, and they had a young baby. So he never spent any additional time in the office that was necessary. And I just, thought, that's weird. I'm young, and I want to stay and chit chat, and that soon became very problematic. In the lunchroom, break room, they're conversating about things that are not relevant to your job, making suspect remarks. And he would always, this particular dentist that I was assigned to at this office, you didn't cross work with other people, you were assigned to somebody. The doctor I was working with, Dr. Simon, he would come in the break room. He would find me. He would seek me out. whether I was across the building or he would just appear sometimes when I was alone and just tell me things that other people were saying to him or were saying about me. And I never really had this type of treatment or information provided to me, especially by a white person. But I mean, what I'm trying to get at is there's just so much going on that I didn't know about when I was so younger. I was just so naive. I was so green. I was so willing to, do things that perhaps I shouldn't have done. And I let a lot of people say a lot of things to me. I'm 33 now that I would not let them get away with. He would come into the break room. He would just say little things. He said, I don't stay in this hen house. Those were the words that he used. And since I've been watching this show, words are very important. And I took heed to that, and I started leaving. It didn't matter what they were doing, and all these people, they order food every day. I mean, like donuts for breakfast and pastries and diet soda. It's so funny because all these white women are huge, humongous, giganormous, and I'm a tall, slender female, black female. And they were always commenting on my food, commenting on why I'm not eating, when I'm going to eat. Like, these people were obsessed with trying to watch me put things in my mouth. I don't know what type of weird, maybe sexual fetish, I don't know what it was about. But I mean, every time that I had to be in the lunchroom, there was this particular white woman who was a hygienist, and she was all up in everybody's plate. I mean, white, black, whatever. And a couple other people got the notion too. This isn't a closed campus. You can leave for lunch if you want to. I didn't care what it is that they ordered for lunch. I don't care if we were, they ordered nice food for, if it was something that I eat, because these people are definitely on a different diet than I am.
Your line is breaking. It just started breaking up a little bit. It was clear before, but then it started breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you moved or something happened.
Oh, okay. Oh, wait. I was thinking they're on a completely different diet than I am, so I don't. My mother always taught me not to eat things that you don't watch them cook. And I wouldn't eat any of the slop that they brought in anyway. It's dismal-looking, grayish food, slimy, oily, and like all these women are huge. So I had to go through being skinny shamed and then making comments about me being perhaps anorexic or today we went through it. And it's funny because we had a meeting when I first started working at the Six, which was a regional wide meeting where they had rented out a hotel conference room for us to show up to after work. And there were about 100 or so people there. And
your line is breaking up. It's doing it more now. It's making it a little bit difficult to hear. I don't know if you're on a device, if you have a headset or something like that, that might be causing it, or if you I don't know if you're in close proximity to something that might be disrupting your signal. If you're on a cell phone, because
my computer off.
Okay.
But anyways, I was just going to say, we rented out this hotel.
It's still doing it. It's still doing it. Do you, if you want to try, maybe if you hang up and just dial right back in, because it's difficult to hear what you're saying. Like I could hear the not food. Your mom had told you not to eat what other people brought if you can't see it cooked, but it's kind of difficult to hear. If you just want to maybe try, just hang up and dial right back in, and I can open your line up and see if that clears it.
Okay.
All right. We'll look for you on the switchboard. All right, so when I see her hand, I'll get her back in. It was a tad challenging.
Hello?
Oh, okay. Are you going to hang up and dial right back in, or? You want to see if it's clear now? You want to give us a couple sentences to see if it cleared up?
Okay. Anyways, it rented us a room in a hotel to go to our regional meeting. Am I okay?
It's just choppy. It just started for some reason. It's choppy. Like it wasn't doing that at first. Like you were crystal clear at first, and then just in the last minute or so, it started being a little choppy where it's kind of difficult to hear you. That's why I was suggesting maybe if you just want to hang up and dial right back in, I can open your line right back up and you can see if that clears it.
I'll call back.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see if that clears the line up, because I know at least for me it was a little difficult to hear. If other folks, if you have commentary that you would like to add in, feel free. Chime in. The number is 641-715-3640. As soon as she calls back, I'll get her in. While we're waiting for her to chime back in, I know Thomas in New York, you were there as well. Were you going to comment as well, sir?
Yes, I was. As I told you guys, I started a new job. It's a temporary job that has the potential to turn into a permanent job. And it's working at, a little out of my element, working at an insurance agency. And I'm dealing with workplace racism from a receptionist who I'm her backup. So she's training me. But I think that she's deliberately training me wrong. And how I found this out was from the coworker, the black guy who I work with. Either way, she's going on vacation next week. So starting tomorrow, I'll be assuming her position. And, the thing this other gentleman, he was able to, I've been able to ask him questions because he's backed her up and he knows the job pretty well. But she's deliberately kept me from, and particularly getting a program that allows me to look up the mail. That's one of the responsibilities of the receptionist in the agency. A lot of the mail comes and it's just addressed to, the insurance company. And her job is to open the mail, look at what type of, document it is and allocate it to the person it needs to go to. And to do that, you need to use the computer and have a certain program that has all of the accounts in it. And through using looking up the account, you're able to find out who works on it and put that person's name on the mail, and it gets distributed around the office or to whatever office it needs to go to that they have. So either way, I've watched her do it, and I would say the importance of taking notes because she was training me. However, she would not allow me to do it. It was more or less just watching her, and she just, wasn't talking, not really being engaging. She would only answer questions if I asked it. And, so being that she's going away, and I don't have access to this program, and I need to do this job, they wanted me to have her password. And she would, so since then she's been emailing everyone. She doesn't want me to have her password so I could do this job, so that she's trying to get me to have access to it, which just finally happened today. So today was my first time ever actually sitting there and doing it. And I did it at, the desk they allocated for me. And, I from taking the good notes, over the time, she would just write a name on stuff, and I would say, hey, why did you write that person's name? Oh, that's because they deal with cancellation. Oh, okay, I write that down. So I noticed those notes came in very handy. And also I was commended today, as they were going over the last minute details of how to open the switchboard in the morning and all this, the lady who does the, that's asked me to come here, says, I'm so glad that you take good notes because, I know that everything that's going on, I see you writing it down. So she kind of commended me on that. But, I just feel like that was deliberately set up. She's trying to set me up to fail. And so does the other guy, because she says that every black person that comes through the door, she has a problem with. And I would say in this whole firm, it's only 5 black employees, including me when I'm there. So that was pretty interesting. Also, there's a lady at the job, and you know, she's very flirtatious, and you know, just out of the blue one day, I'm you know doing my job, and she's you know comes over and introduces herself, and I just felt like you know very odd, like wow, she's very you know forthcoming, and when you look at her, she's very you know, I guess you could say pit-faced. You know, there's a lot of, you know, pits. But she has a body that you can see that only black men would like, not some white men would go for. And I just, you know, noticed around her desk, one day I deliver mail, and she gets a black hair magazine, and I've never seen a white person get a black hair magazine. So Friday, she says, you know, to leave, you have to walk past the desk they allocate for me. She just, in a crowd of people as they're leaving, they all say goodbye, and she says, goodbye, Eric. So I'm like, you know, I didn't get a chance to turn around and say, no, my name is Thomas, you know, correct her, because it was, you know, they walked right out the door. So today, I'm, you know, doing my job, and I go past her desk to put some mail there, and she says, I'm so sorry about Friday. I called you Eric. Now, I never corrected her. I never said anything about it. You know, I haven't said anything to her since then other than hello when I see her or goodbye when they leave because they have to walk past my desk. But, you know, she made it very clear that Eric was this black guy that she had a relations with before, and I kind of remind him of her. I was like, oh, God. You know, and then as I'm walking around the office later, her and another white female that sits there. Yeah, exactly. This lady's so fat, she's crippled. You know, she walks with a cane, and she's not that old. And they called me over, but I was doing something. I had, you know, was presented a task, but they called me over to have, it seemed like cordial conversation. You know, they trying to find out things. You know, hey, where do you live? And I'm like, listen, I'm very busy right now. You know, I got a deadline. I got to meet the guy at the train station, you know, this, that, and the other. They were okay, you know, so I cut that short real quick. So I go back to the black guy. I'm like, yo, you know, let me tell you what's going on. I think this, you know, kind of explain things. So he starts laughing. And he's like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And he said, the one you need to watch out for is the crippled one. I said, get out of here. He's like, yeah, you know, she's notorious. I said, oh, shucks. So, you know, yeah, I'm gonna be dipping and dodging them ASAP. And that was really what I had to say. Oh, also, you know, today what became part of my duties is to walk about 8 blocks from the place to this train station, which is actually the PATH train station on Christopher Street in Manhattan, and meet a black guy who works in the New Jersey office, and we exchange, you know, mail. He exchanges the mail from New York that went to New Jersey. I give him all the mail from New Jersey that went to New York. And then I go back to the office. So today was the first day I met this guy, and the other guy took me out for the route. And of course, you know, I got them both to talking about racism. So it was telling me, you know, he's telling me about all the stuff he's dealing with in the Jersey office. And, you know, how he has a white female who doesn't have any job to do, but her job seems to be the spy, and how, you know, if he comes in 5 minutes late, she already sent the email he's late. If he leaves 5 minutes early, so, you know, when you come over, I'm supposed to be going to do course training over there soon. So, you know, he tells me, you know, watch out for this one. So I'm, you know, taking these names down, like, yeah, okay, these are people I know to watch out for. But also, what's really strange is usually this how this mail exchange is done is it's a white guy who drives the mail over, and we exchange mail. And from what I heard, you know, they pretty much pay his car note and, you know, make sure he has toll and gas and everything. And he does that every day. And he's on vacation. This is why the black guy's going to be doing it this today, you know, the rest of this week and next week. So it's funny how they don't want to give him the same thing. He's been there longer than the white guy. They do the same exact job. I asked him, how come you don't drive? Do you drive? He said, yeah, I wish they would be paying, So he kind of got into that, too. I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Fascinating. I think we have our caller in Oregon back as well, and some other new folks also, but just the crippled white person, because that's another slick one that whites will do. You talk about racism, we got to bring everything in. We got to bring ageism in, and we got to bring in LGBT issues and white women and disability and all that in. And I've said consistently that that's a major act of racism. I don't care if that is a transgender white person, a lesbian white person, a disabled white person. If they're white, they're racist. Wheelchair, whatever the case, they still know that they're white and that they are on team white supremacy. And from what you just shared right there, that's another one in terms of make sure that you do not are not lax on the job and thinking, oh, okay, this is a white person, they're disabled, they're in a wheelchair or whatever, so they're not going to be racist. You could be making a major error. That could be the very person that's setting you up to get fired or whatever the case may be. If they're white, you already know how you should be thinking. The training thing, we talked about that consistently in terms of black people not being trained correctly on the job. That's standard operating procedure. And I would even be extremely cautious. I mean, that's dangerous right there. This white woman that, she's interested sexually in black males or vice versa, whatever it is, that extremely dangerous for a variety of reasons as well. It's great effort in my view in immediately stopping any intrusion where they're trying to gain additional access, additional information about who you are and what that. Great job and just putting a stop on that and just diverting back to the job. I got things that I don't have time to sit around and gossip about my personal life. We got deadlines and things to do, man. Come on. This is New York, man. The city that never sleeps. We got work to do, man. Come on. And nobody should have a problem with that, us being task-oriented on the job. There were a few other things that stood out, but just making sure. Our caller in Oregon, and then I get the other new caller as well. The caller in Oregon, are you back with us, ma'am?
May I be heard?
Yes, now you're crystal clear. We're not having the choppiness before.
All right. Great. I wanted to continue telling the story about how the office that I worked at, this is the first dental office I ever worked at, our first regional meeting, they rented out a hotel downtown that was like a conference room. And there are about 100, 150 so people are there. And like I said, I was experiencing being skinny shamed at work by all these fat white women, and particularly the lead hygienist. And but this was just a meeting that was strictly for the assistants. So we go to this meeting, and there was a couple other assistants. Mind you, they're all, around the same age. I think I was the only black one. We had a Hispanic, an Asian, and a couple other white women, and we're all fairly thin. We go to this regional meeting, and we realize we are the only people there that are able to sit in one chair. And I think maybe they had food there. We had all said, we're not going to eat anything. So that was a thing that happened. But I wanted to also speak about the dentist that I was working with. This was a white man that I was assigned to. And the manager of the office was a white woman, overweight. And the lead dentist that they had hired, she had just, when we got hired there, we got hired together actually, me and the dentist. She had just gotten promoted to being the lead dentist. So, she's got to show out and, make an example. So, Dr. Simon was not complying with any of their trickery, any of their mind tricks. This is a dentist, mind you, and he was getting written up for silly things, leaving, doing, and he would come and show me the paper, and he would seek me out in the lunchroom sometimes. And I'd be in there by myself while other people are busy, and he'd say, "Come look at this, come look at this." so-and-so, I can't put up with this. He had already referred to the lunchroom as a hen house. So I'd already been conditioned to leaving for lunch, and he showed me his write-up. These people spent, I don't know how much of their time writing 2 to 3 pages about the grievances, the things that the other white women in the office had problems with him about. And he took this piece of paper and he posted it up on the refrigerator and he left for lunch. I said, Dr. Simon, you are wild. You are wild. You are too much. And I mean, from there on, it was war. And I mean, you really have to pay attention to the words that they were saying, because when I would get called into the office, these words would come up, that you're argumentative, that you're combative. And that's a word that I can't. Combative. I didn't realize we were in combat. I haven't been in here and I haven't dropped the body yet, but these people are telling me I'm at war with you. You know what I mean? I'm in combat, like psychological warfare with these people. So. And I've also heard that same thing about you not being a team player. You don't fit in. That was the thing that I also heard. Especially you're not social. They're going to tell you you're not social, and you're at war and combat with them at the same time. So the contradiction there is very funny. But just the things that they were shooting at him, and he would just tell me, like, I'm not putting up with this, and I can't deal with this, and I knew he was going to quit. And he had told me, he had come to me and he told me, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I think they had hired, we had another hire, and that's always a sign when you go somewhere and people are leaving. They kind of halfway clean house, so they hired us, and there's a bunch of people who are being transferred to another office, and then another person that they're hiring. And another thing I want to speak about is that whenever you go somewhere and they give you a very large pamphlet, or books, these were training books, and textbooks, and instead of actually, and I had training, but I have piles of books in my closet from all these places that I worked at. And that was a sign, because they did not train me. They wanted me to study these books at home in my free time. Piles, literally like a catalog of books. And mind you, I've been to school. I've got my certification, and when I started temping, they really showed me what they thought of me, because when you're a temp, you just kind of show up. The temp agency that I worked for, when you first go in there, they take a picture of you. You have to have all of your credentials in check. Otherwise, they don't. You're not even filling out an application if you don't have all of your EFTA. You've got to have a CPR card, you've got to have your shots up to date. If you don't have all of this stuff already done when you go in to fill out the application, best believe they don't have time to waste calling you. So I found it very interesting when they would send me out to places, and now there's all of a sudden all these questions of my credentials. Where did you go to school? Where is your certification? I just got the idea that this is what I have to deal with. And the random questions, especially from these conniving white women, especially when you're not doing what they're doing, or you're not eating what they're eating in that lunchroom mess. I also got branded as being not sociable, because I left for lunch. I don't care what you people are ordering or buying, or what restaurant you called. I am leaving. I'm out of here. And also, I had the luxury a lot of times when I was working at the temp, I could just go home for lunch. I don't have to deal with these people. I'll go home, take a nap, and I don't have to show them what I'm eating. I don't even bring food to some of these places. They always try to find ways or try to sneaky, like, I know people were going through my lunch bag because there were things that were moved around, and that was the only thing that I ever brought to work was my lunch bag. And it looked like a purse, but regardless, it's a lunch pail. And I didn't actually see anyone do it, but I know people were going through my things. Yeah. And we also had to get dressed. Some of these offices, they don't allow you to wear your own scrubs, which is nice. You know, you just show up to work in your own clothes, and put on their clothes, and then leave. But then, you know, you've got to go in there and get undressed with all these ginormous white women. And all these comments again, oh, you're so thin. I mean, it's just like I'm skinny shaved at work. You know, oh, well, you're probably an extra small. You don't eat anything. You know, just, you know, I eat one meal, and that's okay, you know. But that's kind of the gist I wanted to get at. It took me a while to really figure out. I mean, I knew racism exists, but I mean, the covert, stealthy, conniving, trying to buddy up with you and tell me about your life. You got kids. Oh, and they also would shame me because I don't have kids. You know, so I'm a young thing, skinny bitch. You know, so to speak. You know. Ask me, why do you wear makeup? I mean, just weird stuff. Like, what do you mean? Like, so I can come to work looking like you? You know, in my mind, but I'm grown. I tell them I do what I want. I wear makeup, they're so upset when you're not looking bad, when you're taller than them, you're thin, you eat better. They know you eat better because they don't ever see anything that you eat. I've never seen a person in my life that drank diet soda constantly and was thin. It's weird. Like, there was this office that I went to, and there was this, I mean, when I say ginormous, I mean, if this woman wasn't going on at least 400 pounds, I don't know what it looks like. I mean, she literally needed 2 chairs. The chair that was in my room that we're supposed to sit in was always missing. It was in her room. Why? Because she needs 2 chairs to sit down. So I'm always going back and forth from the office, pushing chairs around. Where's my chair today? I can guess where it is. I mean, she was so large. I mean, the hallways are pretty narrow in a dental medical spaces. She had to turn sideways to get through, to let other people pass. And she's just the most vile, nasty, disgusting attitude. She was always trying to get in my hair, trying to touch me, trying to, like, ask me about, I mean, like, all the information online. Why me? And especially, I've had it as a pattern that I see this because I spent so much time working at a temp agency where, you just go for the day. I just work here for the day, I tell people, and the same thing. It's not a coincidence. These are habits. These are habits of people.
Standard
White
operating
people.
Procedure. Just hang tight 1 second. I wanted to, we had another person that dialed in. I wanted to make sure we got all our callers. And then I had a question I was going to ask as well. Trying to make sure we didn't miss anybody that we haven't heard from to make sure we get them in before the broadcast wraps. The caller at 2960, did you have commentary? Had we heard from you before?
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. Yes. I'm the caller in New Orleans.
Oh, hi, Princess.
Hi, Gus. I was calling to give an update on my workplace situation. As of yesterday, my supervisor is no longer my supervisor at our store location. As we know, white people don't necessarily get fired, they get transferred, but I'm happy to see that he is no longer in place as per requested, we have a new store manager, and she's a Black female, and is very nice and humble, and one for the Black team, I guess I could say, overall. But basically, it just came down to, after I had the meeting about the incident I had with an employee being insubordinate with me and being disrespectful, and there was a situation that happened in the back office with this individual. I brought to light, and I'll probably share the document with you that I sent to our corporate office about my, because they requested my statement, and they initially wanted my statement earlier on, but I, like Gus has said in the past, with white people, you have to be just as conniving and calculating as they are. So I stalled to the point where my store manager, as of last week, was trying to make it seem as if I was trying to intimidate him or something, and basically was trying to say that, you know, you can't make threats against me, and, you know, you basically have me on the ropes. I don't know what you're trying to do. And I said, well, I don't make threats. I told you if I have to contact corporate on you, I will. And so he immediately changed the subject and was trying to be in my good graces. And all the while, I didn't know until my assistant store manager, who I'm cool with, she let me know that basically there was another customer service representative that was threatening to go corporate on him too, because she was trying to resolve an issue with the same person that I've had an issue with forever. And he wasn't trying to do that. She shorted her about $300 and some odd dollars, almost $400 during her shift, and basically felt that she was being bullied and harassed and stuff like that. So she had been in the office complaining about this other individual that a lot of people have been having an issue with too. And so both her and I basically had him in a corner. And I didn't realize that at that point he was already exploring trying to get transferred to another store in the North Shore. And to my knowledge, I believe that's the white area where all the white people are. Because he always makes these comments about, you know, certain areas of New Orleans and this, that, and the other. And I'm like, you know, I'm not from here. So, but locally people tell me, they're like, oh, Slidell, that's white. Or, you know, North Shore, that's pretty much white people. Metairie, white. Kenner, white. This, that, and that. So, basically, he was supposed to be going to some meetings or something like that. I didn't know until I was off Sunday and Monday. I come in Tuesday, literally after I clocked in, and at the door, he's like, I just want to let you know that today is my last day. And I was just like, oh, wow. There was also an anonymous complaint filed in regards to a security issue. I can't go into too much detail about that. But basically, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I did talk about the conflict of interest between the other store leaders and ethics. I brought that up from the employee's manual. And like I said, I brought up the issue, the anonymous tip was brought up as regards to the security issue. And that pretty much did it. Hello?
A+ for Princess. A+ for Princess. I would say that In my view, it underscores the importance of making a report. If there is misconduct, particularly, it doesn't even have to be phrased as misconduct. If the person is violating policy and procedure on the job, it is extremely important. Just make a report. You don't have to go in and curse anybody out or do anything like that. Just according to policy and procedure, it seems like someone is doing something that is in violation of our written policy and procedure here at this company. If I'm, in error, if I'm misinformed, you can let me know. And just make a report of that, because that can pile up if you have a paper trail. That's what they do to us. Just, stack up papers. Oh, you were 5 minutes late. We've been hearing that the whole program. You were 5 minutes late here. You left an hour late here, and this, that, and the other. And they do that all the time with black people. So we should be doing the same thing. And particularly if it's a clear violation of policy, where it's this is perception, or this is a he said, she said. No, according to page, 54, Section A, this is a violation of policy. Is it not? Yes. Okay, so what should be done about that? Even if they don't fire them right then, if you can start piling up incidents where they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you can at least, again, as Mr. Fuller says, white people don't get fired, they get transferred. So I'm sure he'll just be, abusing somebody at another branch now, not your store specifically, but...
Well, he says it's in a better area, and the area that he's talking about is basically a gentrified area in New Orleans, off of Magazine Street. And he went into describing the high-end items that was in the store, and I'm looking at the reports, I'm just like, just trying to play dumb, but I already hear the coded language, and I'm just like, okay. I pretend like I didn't know where the area was, which, like I said, I've been there, and so I know exactly what it is. And he's like, oh, there's Whole Foods there too, and all these posh places, and I'm just like, right. Yeah, I was like, okay. And so, like I said, the new store manager, she did ask me, was I looking to move up and all this stuff. And, she's very, very, like I said, it's refreshing because, like I said, I have so much, at times, negative things to say about black people. Like today was the first day there, her just being there, and it was just like, I didn't have anybody riding me or badgering me or belittling me and all this terroristic stuff. She just let you do your job. That was it. And I didn't feel like it was just now for the other people who've been getting away with all this stuff. And I believe more than likely the reason why she was picked and brought in particular was because of the comment I made as far as bringing up the issue of race and telling them that I was offended by them bringing in a black male into the meeting, and it wasn't a planned meeting. I had no idea what was going on. And my assistant store manager, she's a black female, she was there that day, but they didn't want her in the meeting. I guess they thought that they was going to intimidate me. And I can't remember what exactly he said, but I just remember that I said, I just flat out came out and said that I was, quote, sick and tired of his plantation games. And the black male sat there was just like, he sat in his seat like, and he asked me specifically what I meant, and I told him, I was just like, I basically was just like, well, you understand what a plantation is and how it works, right? And he was just like, my store manager, he was red, and the black guy seemed like he turned a shade darker. So then that's pretty much how the course of the conversation went. And they just completely was unprepared because I had everything. I didn't have anything in front of me, but I had facts and I had my documentation as far as dates. I was reciting very specific stuff And then, of course, I was referring it right back to the employee manual, our policies and procedures, our ethics, and tied it in with our company's credo, you know. And it just, they didn't know what to do. They was trying to well, how can we make this work? And, you know, they use the word, well, that doesn't sound like racism, Princess. That sounds like a double standard. And I said, no, that sounds, I was just being frank at that point because I know that they were toying with me. And I just said, no, that kind of sounds like white supremacy. And they were just looking at me crazy like, what? And I was just like, well, isn't this your friend? And he was like, what do you mean? I said, you brought Mr. Perrier here. This is supposed to be your friend. Well, Princess, we do this, that, and the other, and we help each other. I said, yeah, but this is a conflict of interest right here. You know that you're only vouching for him to cover him. And the black guy, he was just he didn't really know what else to say. And then my store manager was looking to him at times, like cueing him to say, well, are you going to defend me? Or it was weird, awkward, and funny. And then finally he was just bloodshot red. He looked like he was going to cry at one minute, and was just like apologizing profusely for if I felt that he was being racist with him. And I said, yeah, I really do feel that. I absolutely feel that you've been racist with me. I said, you come off as being sexist as well, even though I don't believe in using that particular term, but since I'm referring to a white person, yeah. And I was just being very honest and frank, didn't care what happened afterwards, but I was just letting them know I'm not your fun bag anymore. Don't want to play around. And so, you know, they had people coming in, and they had their little meetings, all these big white important people, I guess, out in Metairie. And that's what made them decide on this individual, which is, I'm glad, actually, because she's cool. And but he knew that he was backed in the corner because this other person was threatening to go corporate on him. And then once the complaint came in, the anonymous tip, that did it.
We'll still give time if folks have suggestions that they want to get into any of the things that they've heard from our more recent callers, the female caller in Oregon, or Princess, her situation, giving us the update on what has transpired down in New Orleans. The caller, I think this is caller in California, 9315. Did you have commentary you wanted to share on workplace racism?
Yeah, sure. Greetings to everyone. Oh man, so I can really relate to how everyone is saying that these white ladies are trying to keep tabs on them. If last week I actually shared that, what did I say? Oh, she was the same white lady from last week. Who I said, what did I say? Oh, who I said she made a comment about me being antisocial, so I can like slip out or what have you. So something I've been noticing is that whenever I'm talking to someone, like one of my coworkers, usually I honestly only talk to like it's like two black males there, and then it's like two other like a white dude and like another white dude who I like converse with sometimes. And whenever I'm talking, she'll like try to butt her way in, or if I'm sitting in the office, like she'll try to because so we share offices, so if I'm sitting in the office, like I notice like she'll come in there and sit down, and like I'm usually just either making phone calls or you know whatever, but she'll just come in there and sit down and try to get me to talk to her, or like just anytime she's like she comes in the conversation, like I'll kind of slide myself out. But I just been noticing this a lot. Like every time I talk to somebody, it's like she tries to get over there, or like today so we take turns talking to customers. So today I had talked to a customer, but I had turned it. So I gave it to another person, and when you give it to another person, you take their spot. So I was like, so anyway, I turned it to another person, and then I took his spot. And then she said, so she was like, why is he still out here? Like, he just had her up. But, like, I turned it. But why, like, the thing is, why is she worried about me so much? But that's all I have for right now.
Fascinating. I'm glad people are hearing that in terms of the spying that is going on, particularly with these white women, because that's just standard operating procedure. I wouldn't want people to think that it's that white males don't engage in this behavior as well, because they certainly do, in terms of just being nosy and, oh, what are you doing? What are you reading? Who are you talking to? All that. They totally are engaged in the exact same behavior, but just white women, I think a lot of times we don't perceive them being engaged in that behavior on a constant basis as well. I think we nabbed everybody. The caller who just chimed in, you just sound like you were on speakerphone, so I can open your line back up as well if you have more that you want to add. I just wanted to get in. If anybody that we missed, if you dialed in, you have a hand up and we missed you, you should speak now because we have less than 30 minutes in the program. Anybody dialed in?
Yes.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
How you doing, guys, and to all the callers and listeners? I had a workplace observation recently. Very interesting. Again, dealing with white women. This seems to be like White Woman Thursday or something. There was a black male on the job that started working where I'm working shortly after, maybe a month or two after I started there. And he's a Haitian guy, and we've had Haitian descent, Haitian American, and we talk quite a bit. And a couple of times we talked about white people on the job and just the dangers of fraternizing with them, things of that nature. But he comes from a background where he has gotten his law degree, things like that. So he's been around quite a few white people, and especially white women. And he told me stories of them coming on to him at some of his previous places of employment, which was in the law field, whereas in this position, it's a health insurance company. And there's this one white female. She says that she's Persian, but she definitely can pass for white. She has I would say, a black female body, similar to, like, I guess you would describe like a so-called video type of female, very shapely, extremely pale. And one day we had a discussion about her. He was like, oh, well, her face ain't that pretty, but, her body's crazy. And I was just like, dude, you can say what you want. I said, I don't deal with white people whatsoever. I said, I stay as far away from them as possible. So eventually he started telling me he's had trouble. He's been trying to so-called wean himself off of white women as far as just his looking at them in a sexual manner. And I said, well, I never had that problem. And, we ended up talking, and he kind of eased back off of her because he's into exercise and, like, bodybuilding. She's also, like, a personal trainer. So they have that in common. So they would talk about those things, and she would make it a purpose to fraternize with him quite often. So he was saying at one point he was trying to stay away from her, but I said, nah, he's going to fall for her real quick. So recently, maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I was going home, and in the train station, they were nastily tongue kissing, and it made me almost hurl on the platform. So I hid behind a pillar in the train station so they wouldn't see me. And the train was short, so I ended up having to run quickly past them to catch the train. It was in the last car. So I acted like I didn't see them, and I just shot for the train. And they've been seeing each other now, from what we understand, for a little while, at least from what I know. And what she's been doing is, and other people told me that they noticed this. I don't really pay them much attention. I stay as far away from both of them as possible, especially once I realized that they were in contact like that. I'm cordial with him. I don't treat him any differently as far as giving him small talk. But anything outside of small talk, I stay as far away from him as possible. With her, it's just hi and bye. And sometimes she'll talk to me because one of her people who she's close to on the job, this pregnant white female who is on the team that I work with, she goes over there every day to check in on her friend. So she'll speak to me, but I keep it short and to the point and keep it moving. So other people told me that when they saw them together, they went shopping at lunchtime, and he became like the the step and fetch it Negro, I guess, is the only way I could look at it, because they said that he was carrying like 7, 8 huge shopping bags for her, and he's holding doors for her, and essentially he's just been like her servant. But whatever she wants, he goes and does it. And I sat there and I was like, well, I wonder how because he said he's dated black females. So I always said, I wonder if he treats black females that way. I said, in my mind, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I said in my mind, I'm like, I doubt he would treat black women like he's treating this white woman. And other black people on the job just were talking about how disgusted they were and how they felt it was incorrect the way she was treating him. And it just goes back to that whole idea that, and I suggest even the discussion today about other people's experiences of white women, it's very much a plantation mentality. When white women want to nitpick and find out every little thing about you, it's the same way they would function on the plantation. They want to know about your family. They want to know what's going on with you. They want to find out where your mind is, what kind of Negro you are. And if they can't get at you that way, as far as being sly or coy, then they'll become overt and aggressive. And if they can't do that, the next thing is to try and get you in bed. And it is just the most nauseating thing to bear witness to. And just to see the refinement of sexual terrorism and how sex is used because they know how society cultivates black men to look at black women. It is the most disgustingly sickening thing to bear witness to something like that. And it's just sad that some of us sadly volunteer ourselves to be mistreated on this level. And wow, all I can say is that, like I said, I'm highly observant. I mind my business. I keep my resume flowing at all times. And thank you for taking my call with that one.
For sure. Anyone that we missed, anyone who has not been able to comment at all, you should definitely speak up now. Anybody that we missed totally who has a hand up? Grant, I will assume that we got everybody who dialed in with a hand up. Anybody, if you've already spoke, that's fine. Anybody have any observations, anything that stood out from what you heard from all the folks who dialed in more recently? I know that's Roz, the caller in Oregon, Princess, the caller that just dialed in was talking about the spying white females, the one who accused him of trying to be quiet so they could sneak out easily from work. Anybody have any other observations they wanted to share?
I could go again if you would like.
I wanted to ask, you said, before you share, you said, I believe the first, what you had been watching was about one of the programs that we did on hair. Which program was it specifically that we did about hair?
It said, it was just black women and their hair.
Okay. Did you hear the programs that we did on white terrorism in Oregon? The one we did.
Oh yes, that was the very next one that I watched.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I did. That was the very next one that I watched. Yeah.
Did you hear the one, the documentary Whitelandia? That's also about white supremacy in Oregon. It's two white people. They're putting it together. That program was the day that it was announced that there was not going to be an indictment in the Michael Brown case. But these were two white filmmakers. Wow. In Oregon, I think the announcement happened live while we were on the air. I think one of them shared it, and we talked about that too. But they did this documentary called Whitelandia about the history of white supremacy in Oregon.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. I didn't seek to look out the film. I didn't think I needed to after I heard the commentary.
Oh, right on. Right on.
Yeah.
Feel free.
I've lived here my entire life, so I mean, there's not too much people can tell me about how white people are here, because I've been planted here.
Right on.
I just wanted to speak to kind of what the last caller was talking about. I've kind of got so many of these stories, but like I said, I was a temp, so I've been all over Portland and Beaverton, and I mean all over the place. But this other an office that I was a day worker, temp as you want to call it, I actually had worked there before, and I'd gone through all this trouble, and all these people were, like I said, I was very young. I didn't really understand what they were doing, and the person who was supervising me wasn't someone who was necessarily in the building. There was someone who would come and visit, and what particular was a white woman who was obviously the other assistant on the other side, and she was someone who was supposed to be training me on how to enter in all these antonyms and, into the computer for insurance, and I never got any of that training. So also when they fired me, they said, I didn't learn the computer. Well, they never took the time to teach me the computer. They handed me a dictionary, and I never had time because they were slaving me around all over this place. But anyways, when this woman who was supposed to come and observe me, what they were doing that I was unaware of is when she would come to the building, and I didn't know that she was in the building, but somehow they knew. They would send me out on these missions to go get supplies, and I mean, this is a fairly big building. So go get supplies, go get magazines out of the way. I mean, just stupid, missions. And later when she fired me, or when I was being terminated, these words that they used, they said, oh, well, when I came to observe you, you weren't around. You weren't in the room. So this was all, they're all conspiring to figure out a way to get rid of you. You're just their token little Negro for the moment. You pass the qualification. That was another thing I wanted to talk about, the caller earlier. I was grabbing the phone, so I didn't really hear it. They said that the doctor, she should go find another job. Well, I've never had a problem finding a job. I've never had a problem putting together a resume, putting together my credentials, putting together anything. The problem is keeping that job when you get in there with all these, white supremacists and agents, double agent white women trying to, send me across the land and tell the person who's supposed to come to observe me, oh, well, we don't know where she went. She's on her break. And the supply room was right next to the break room, so they had all these little things talking about I was taking extra breaks. But the next time that I went there, and I was sent by the temp agency, which is also very funny, to the same place where I was terminated at. They had somehow hired a black dentist, and he was the lead dentist. He wasn't just, he was the lead dentist. He had his office. The lead dentist usually is the only one who has their own private office. So, and I had been there a couple times. I didn't really know. I'd never seen it because they were just kind of slaving away in a room in the corner, and that's often where the dentist that they put me with is off in a room in the corner somewhere. And he had a black assistant, but the conversation that was centered around this man just made my heart sink. Yeah, he's black. He's a man, but all these people are, oh, I can't believe you've gone to dental school. We've got a black dentist, and every time I'm passing the room, it's this conversation that's going on about his blackness. He's a dentist. Can't believe you're educated. They can't believe that you made it past school. How'd you niggers? That's the new word that I've gotten from you. Niggers. I'm a nigger. I thought that we rigged it so you couldn't get in. So they're just amazed that this black man is the lead dentist. And every time, it never failed. Whenever they sent me to this office, and it was particularly that ginormous white woman, was all. What I figured out now is what they were doing. They were kind of thirsty for him. He's a tall black man, and he's athletic, slender, not like all these sloppy, fat white people. Slender guy, basketball type body. They were thirsty for him. That's what it was. Yeah.
Not surprising. The person at 8562, did you have commentary you wanted to add as well? 8562.
Hello, good night. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarification. Ross had made a statement just now when he said white women, when they try to get information from you, he said they started out being real sneaky, then they get aggressive, and then I didn't hear the third thing. I would like if he could repeat what he said.
Sure. What I was saying was, first they tend to be very coy and demure, and seemingly nice and pleasant. If that doesn't work, then they can get overtly aggressive and nasty or conniving towards an overt in their attack. And I said in other cases, if that doesn't work, they go the sexual route. And there's usually, if it's not one of those two, there's some sexual tension involved. It's one of those three. And all of those three things are exactly the same things that used to happen to our ancestors on the plantation. It's the same type of stuff. And incredible. I can't speak praises of this book enough. Delectable Negro will give you such insight into the psychological terroristic practices of white people on a very holistic level. And to me, even though in that book they speak quite a bit of the sexual rape of black males, it applies to females as well, as far as a lot of the information that I've garnered, and then just listening to other people on the show speak about, especially tonight, speaking about just the wholesale psychological, physical, sexual terrorism that is the white female. I think they're the most underestimated terroristic creature that has ever been put down on the planet. Thank you.
And I have one more question. I'm in a job right now where I'm not really getting anything so I basically work for the engineers. So they have to tell me what to do. They give me stuff to do. And what's been happening is that only certain engineers will come to me for me to do something. And if they don't come to me, I have nothing to do. So what should you do, as a worker when there is no work to do, and people are watching you and watching if you're working? Do you have any advice for something like that?
I can speak to that. I mean, you got to find some. You have to make some. A lot of times they would send me to offices, and I would, working as a temp, or I'd taken the job for a couple days. You have to literally make. I mean, I would start cleaning, and I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be something that a dental device. I'm gonna go in the kitchen. I'm gonna start cleaning. Pull out the vacuum. I mean, because if something happened, they were always the first. I was always the first one to go home. You're the temp. You're the one that's gonna go home. So I mean, I would literally, you better find something to do. Make it up.
So it's like I've been doing that. So I have had nothing to do, and I clean my office, or I find small stuff to do, and then an engineer will come into my office and see what I'm doing, and he's like, "Oh, so you're doing this? So basically, you have nothing to do, right?" So he's saying the work that I'm not doing anything, even though I'm doing something.
Yeah, I don't know. If there are things in your office that need to be cleaned, I get in the spring cleaning mode. I start without the vacuum. I mean, there are plenty of offices that I've been to that have their whole, lunchroom cleaned. Because, you send me here to be a temp, and, your patient doesn't show up or something, you don't have nothing to do. I'll start cleaning. I don't even care if it's supposed to be something, that's dental or medical. I would just start cleaning all types of stuff.
Your facility, the female that asked about this, you could ask, I don't know if you have a direct supervisor or what have you, manager, whatever it is, to ask them, number one, is there a reason if you've done anything incorrect in terms of why work is not being sent to you, since she said you have to be given assignments to work on, and then it seems like they might not be giving you assignments. That could be another act of racism, white supremacy right there. But even if you're not addressing that, just if there's any reason why you're not being given assignments, or if maybe this is just a low period where there are not as many tasks to assign, if they say that, that's fine too. And then most importantly, in the interim, what should I do if I do not have assignments? Are there specific things that I can be working on so that I'm on task, so that people are not just looking at me as though, I'm just being a shiftless Negro. You don't have to say that, but I'm just not working. I'm just here collecting a paycheck to do nothing. So that way you'll know, okay, so I haven't been given an assignment. This is what I'm going to work on in the meantime. Because, I mean, does this happen where other people on the job where they don't have an assignment, so they're just sitting waiting until they get something to do? Does this happen to other people on the job from time to time?
Yeah, Yeah, they make it seem like that. Yep, that's what they tell me.
Oh, okay.
But nobody's really watching them. I feel like people are watching me when they walk past my office. They look into my office to see what I'm doing constantly, all the time.
Oh, they are. they for sure are. That should.
Then there's like my computer. The way my office is set is like my back is to the door, so they can see what I'm doing all the time. But I don't know when someone is behind me or when someone's looking at me or anything like that. But the other people who don't have anything to do, they have like it's more private for them. So they cannot be doing anything, and nobody knows that they're not doing anything.
Yeah, if this does happen from time to time, even if it's to other employees that are other than yourself, if it's really something where it's bothering you beyond them coming in to look and be like, oh, look, shiftless Negro, she's not even doing anything. I'm just asking, what are we supposed to do in the interim while we're waiting, if we do not have an assignment? If this is something that happens here in this particular company, then just let me know what the procedure is. As for the people coming in and snooping, I mean, they are doing that. I think, if anything, this program, the one today specifically, and the many installments that we've done on workplace racism, you for sure are under surveillance by the racists on your job. So absolutely that is happening. I don't know if you have that as an option to reconfigure your desks. I know in some workplaces they're real particular. That's a part of the policy and procedure that you cannot move the furniture around, or you have to get authorization to move the furniture around so that your computer is not visible as people walk past your door. If you can move it, great. Maybe that's an option. If it's not, that is the system that we're in. And yes, they are going to walk by and say, oh, she's not even working on anything. That's what I tell you. That's what they do. I would just this is what you're supposed to do in the meantime. This is what you can be working on in the meantime while you're waiting on an assignment. And I wouldn't even worry about it. If they're not giving me an assignment, and as long as I get my paycheck, I would try my best to not let it bother me too much. If that, unless it's going to cause a problem someplace, somehow.
I was going to say the same thing. Definitely, if you ask your superiors what could be done in an interim period in which you're not receiving a lot of work to do. Also, if you are unable to switch your desk into a more advantageous position, another thing, which is something I employed where I work, because we had cubicles and people would walk around and stuff, is I actually had a very small mirror that I put on my desk, which allowed me to look in it and see behind me. So I could see if there's someone coming up behind me, if there's someone walking past my desk, because I pay a lot of attention to body language and things like that. So whenever I was placed in the seat in which my back was to the aisle and people could just walk up on me without me knowing, I always put a mirror, a very small mirror, but in a strategic place where I could actually see what was going on behind me, and the person might not necessarily know until they get into a certain position that I had a mirror there. But I always just kept it there just in case if it was a situation where I was in a situation where I could more or less a protected position where people can't roll up on me like that, then I wouldn't, have no need for the mirror. But other than that, just a small mirror in the right place. Just set it in the right angle so you can look either over your shoulder or out to the side and behind yourself so you can see if anyone's creeping up behind you or being sneaky.
Also, can I add what I would do is I've been on assignments in places where you didn't have anything to do. I started becoming a notorious hag at asking people, what do you need me to do? Is there anything you want me to do? Where other people will have something to do and I don't, I attach myself to them. Hey, going with you. And I'm going to help you. I'm going to, observe you or whatever, But I always hate that feeling when I have nothing to do and white people are watching. And I can't. I think that's part of the territory. Unless you have a job where you're constantly busy, you're going to have that feeling at some point.
For sure. Any final comments folks want to make sure they get in before we get ready to wrap things up? Anything else?
I wanted to say, when I am trained by this basic receptionist, she does something that really irks me and it annoys me. She the simplest task, like if I go up to her, and she wants to log off her computer so I can log on to it. She's today showing me how to get into this new program that I got. So, she's logging off, and she's explaining every step she's doing as she's logging off, very loud. And I know that she does this all the time, so she's like, press Alt, Control, Delete, now switch user. Like, who doesn't know this? Like, but she's doing it in a loud way, kind of making me feel like, you're trying to say, well, I'm stupid or something. Like, just do it. I just find like a lot of white people do that when they're explaining things to you at the workplace. They explain it to you in a very loud way, not in an aggressive way, but in a way that let other white people, I think, know that, hey, look what I'm doing. I'm helping the black person, And I think it's also done in a way to make the black person feel like, they're stupid by the way they're explaining it to them. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yes, that is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, guys. I'm sorry.
I concur 1,000%. I think that sort of thing is done. And all the while, when they're not even training you correctly, I think that's when one of the central features of this racist woman's training is that she has done a really poor, seems like a deliberately poor job of training you, and then all the while where they're not giving you, with purposely withholding constructive information from you, making it seem as though you are dumb, you are ignorant, and they've got to do this in a really elementary manner, like you're some 5-year-old or what have you, like, oh, poor ignorant colored, so I'm going to help you, and just being really obvious about it, making a show, a demonstration for the other whites to enjoy this whole spectacle. But absolutely, I have seen and experienced that myself. And again, just it cannot be emphasized enough while they are purposely sabotaging you so that you will perform in an incompetent manner because they've withheld constructive information from you. Happens all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say that form of condescending treatment is like innate to white people, and it sounds like that white female in particular. It's very interesting because it's almost like they don't want you to think for yourself or have any sort of sense or autonomy. And when they speak in such loud, condescending tones, it's exactly what you said. It's to speak to you to make you feel like you're stupid. Let everyone around you know, as far as the other white people, know that, I'm trying to help this simple Negro, get these simple tasks accomplished. And it's something, again, from my studies, it goes back to the plantation. There was a section in Delectable Negro where the guy had a black male, was on a boat. He was cooking some food for the ship's captain, the white ship's captain. It was a storm on the boat, and he could not fry the fish the way the man wanted it because he told him he had to do it outside on the deck of the ship, not inside where he would be protected from the elements. He left the ship, left the black male on the ship, came back. The guy couldn't cook it. It was soaked, so he ended up poaching the food. And then the man made him stand outside naked and then brutalized him for all the slaves to see. And then when he basically told the master, I thought this was the best way for me to make the food because you told me I could not go inside and cook for you where it would have been done properly. The guy said, I didn't ask you to think. And his whole thing was that you were so stupid, you're supposed to do everything I tell you to do and somehow make it magically happen by any means necessary. And it seems to me like these sorts of plantation psychosocial conditioning is exactly what we experience every day in a more refined manner and in an office space. So we're not always aware of the history of how these things play out, but absolutely that condescending manner, that mistreatment, that's something I've experienced quite a bit myself, and it can be very annoying, upsetting, and disconcerting. And that's something I find that they do as well with people who either speak a foreign language or have a thick accent. They'll talk to you very loud, their voice will go up automatically, and then they talk down to you as if you're stupid because you either speak a different language or you have an accent of some sort, and they'll act like they don't understand the accent. So it's another form of them trying to psychologically belittle you in a public space, on the job, or in a work situation. And again, I'm sorry that you have to go through that because, like I said, that can be very, very disconcerting and agitating. And I wish you the best. I hope that things somehow improve, or maybe they get her away from you, or you're able to escape having to deal with her on a daily basis. Now, I was going to ask, have you been keeping records as far as her training or lack thereof, as far as that sort of experience, and the information that you've been able to garner about your position without her assistance or getting assistance from other codified black people, versus the fact that she's not actually training you, so at least you have a record of those sorts of things, even though you may not have overtly complained about her. Just something to keep a record of in case it's something you can utilize down the road. Even though I do know it's a temp job, I would still do that just in case they do happen to hire you permanently. So I just wanted to ask about that too.
I keep a record of everything.
Wonderful. That's always good to do. And I just hope they get her as far away from you as humanly possible, and as soon as possible.
Right on. That will wrap things up for this week's installment of Workplace Racism. We should be here next Thursday, same broadcast time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Again, you can feel free to email if you have commentary related to workplace racism. If you know you're not going to be able to call in, or you don't want to call in, feel free. I will say we consistently have lots of people who are spectating. We want to try to work against that. That's in the first installment of the code book from Mr. Fuller, talking about grid as spectators. We have a lot of victims of racism where that's kind of how we've been conditioned to just kind of observe and sit back and not participate. Counter racism is not a spectator activity. You need to be actively engaged. I am sure we have a host of folks who are listening, have been listening, who have observations, problems, experiences related to workplace racism. Share. I think it's super helpful for other folks to be able to hear just how similar, just to know that this is not something that's just an individual problem for you, that it's not anything that you did wrong, you didn't do anything to warrant or cause being abused on the job, that this is just literal. I mean, really, when we say standard operating procedure, that's what it means, that this sort of thing is happening to other black people all over the world, other non-white people all over the world. This is just what whites do. This is what it means to be white. And they engage in a lot of the same activities on the job, have been for many, many years, dating back to the plantation, as was just stated by Roz. So definitely chime in. Again, if you're in a loud environment or you're nervous about speaking or whatever the case, you can email as well. But we should have more folks. I find it difficult to believe that all of the folks who hang out and listen are having a flawless work experience with regards to racism. I find that hard to believe if the folks listening are black and or non-white. Anywho, we'll be here tomorrow for Medical Apartheid here in Washington, Section 11. We might only have 2 of these sessions left. I was looking at the last, 3-4 sections of the book, and they are a little shorter than I thought. So we'll definitely have one more after tomorrow. But we are on the home stretch. Number 11 tomorrow, Medical Apartheid. Picking up on Chapter 13, normal broadcast time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Compensatory call-in is this weekend, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And we will be doing the normal broadcast time for this Sunday. Steve Jimenez, this is, I believe, a white male. We'll confirm when he's on the program. But he admits to being a gay male. And he wrote the book of Matt, which is about Matthew Shepard. This is a white male. He was killed in 1998. They said it was a hate crime. He was killed because he was gay. They attached his name to the hate crime bill. The James Byrd Jr. Matthew Shepard hate crime bill is how it is labeled. And I think a lot of people mentioned this case. They mentioned it with the Orlando shooting. The basic premise of his book is that there's a lot more about this case than was generally reported in mainstream media when they covered the trial and everything. The 2 individuals who were convicted for this killing, they got life sentences with no possibility of parole. So in the hearing, it was all, this is, war on gays and, gay bashing and homophobia and this is terrible. They killed this young, gay white male. And the basic premise, as I said, of his book, and I think some of the other people who've read it, is that that is not the case at all, that there's a lot more here, a lot of details that were left out, and even some of the enforcement officials and attorneys had doubts about some of what was reported in this case, how it is generally explained. When people talk about Matthew Shepard, I think it is extremely important because people use this case and what happened in Orlando to try to suggest that, hey, white gay people and black people, we basically have the same problem. That, you know, this injustice, then we need to join forces and fight together. And I submit nothing is further from the truth, and that once you start to investigate, there's a lot of deception when they try to pull this off. I think this book, that at least from what I've read about half of the book thus far, that is a major theme of the book, deception, people lying and not being honest when they're reporting about this, some of the people that are involved, and just a lot of the coverage of this case, just not giving all of the details to get an accurate understanding of why this happened. But that'll be Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I think it's real important because I'm sure if you even do a casual search of the incident that happened at the Pulse nightclub in Florida and Matthew Shepard's name, quite a bit of material will pop up. And that's just over the last 2 weeks since that happened. Anywho, if you get confused, if you can't find something in the archives, you have a guest suggestion, if you just wanted clarification about something that was stated on the program, you can drop an email untiljustice@gmail.com, untiljustice@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Great hearing the feedback from folks. I hope it has been a constructive investment of your Thursday evening. Again, sobriety would be best under conditions of white terrorism. Certainly on the job, you do not want to be under the influence, even if it is encouraged and or promoted. That is a horrible idea on the job. Certainly if you're going to be in a vehicle, I encourage you do not want to be intoxicated. That is another horrendous decision. You're just making the job of Daniel Holtzclaw, Darren Wilson, or any other race soldier. You're making their job way easy. If they want to take your life, have you in greater confinement, imprisoned, whatever, make outstanding decisions if you're going to be behind the wheel or just period under the system of white supremacy, so that you can keep yourself as safe as possible, you and anybody else that you might be responsible for. If you're going to be in a vehicle, let's buckle up every time. Let's do everything we can to minimize contact with race soldiers. That said, we will see you all in about 24 hours. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.